Testing.
Are you sure? Yep. Tell me when you're ready to go. All right, good evening, everybody. It is 6 p.m. on Monday, June 29th, and I will call this regular meeting of the Winchester School Committee to order. Our agenda for today is as follows. We will have public comment and then move from that to superintendent and chair remarks. Take our consent agenda, hopefully around 6:45 p.m. Move into the very comprehensive memo. Thank you to our chair of the policy subcommittee for the many policies we are reviewing for first read tonight. And then we will move on to an update from our budget subcommittee and go to our capital project priority list and look at WCCP applications that have been submitted, that there is some request for some kind of an action on the part of the school committee. We will try to schedule our summer meetings and workshop, and then we will wrap it up with an executive session for purposes 2 and 3 that will then end with us coming back into regular session for approval of the Unit D contract, and hopefully do all that and get out of here by 8:40 p.m. So with that, I would like to open it up for public comment. Public comment shall be for a period of 20 minutes. Anyone who'd like to speak before the committee shall identify themselves by name and speak for no longer than 3 minutes. All remarks are addressed through the chair, and it is not a discussion, debate, or dialogue. If there are written comments that are longer than 3 minutes, they should be presented to the committee during or after the meeting. So with that, I will turn it over to our vice chair, who has the list, and we'll keep time.
Paras Bayani.
So I thought it would be fitting that I cap my interactions with this committee the same way I began them 2.5 years ago, in a room full of parents who are not very pleased with all of you. Alas, that did not happen, but nevertheless, I am here. Last time, for those of you who remember, Stephanie and I were actually among those parents. This time, though, I'm here to share a different view, because over the last 1.5 years, I've had the opportunity to work closely with this school committee. This includes watching you fix the elementary literacy program, the issue that first activated many of us, including several of you. I'm here because I want to highlight what I see as this committee's defining strength: your willingness to confront difficult realities, even when the immediate decisions are painful and unpopular. You brought this approach to the State of the Town process. Stephanie, Tim, Karen, you were central partners. John, you contributed even though you weren't even on the school committee, and Tom drove the work stream around solar from start to finish. The work you did with us was extraordinarily deep, detailed, and clear. You also made the hard call as part of that to rationalize your facility footprint, including saying no to spending precious taxpayer dollars on the garage of the Sanborn House, the dilapidated and unsafe structure that some people call the carriage house. I encourage you to reaffirm that decision tonight. CPA funds are taxpayer funds, and the proponents repeatedly said at town meeting this project would be funded entirely by private donors who had already made significant pledges. One town meeting member even said, "The Historical Society is not asking you to spend money. We are going to save you money." Going back to the broader State of the Town process, when the Select Board put an override before voters, you were honest about what failure would mean. Cuts between 24 and 31 positions, plus cuts to athletics or a move toward a self-funded model. When the override failed, the reduction was not 24 to 31 positions, it was 32.5, above the upper end of the range. Those positions were teachers, kindergarten aides, librarians, and math interventionists. Because you made those painful decisions and worked with us and the Finance Committee, we reached a consensus budget for the first time in years. Likewise, the athletics proposal is another hard call, and it has to be framed the right way. This is not a tax increase. It is a cut in spending. Maintaining last year's fees would require a subsidy of $700,000, up from $600,000 last year, and you are proposing $450,000. That produces user fee increases. Whenever the district cuts spending, people feel it. One elementary and middle school parent told me that because WPS is eliminating math support, she hired a tutor for her son for $200 a week. Over the length of a hockey season, she will pay $2,400 extra dollars, or about $7,000 over the course of a school year. Moving a burden previously shared by all taxpayers directly onto families is painful. The only way to avoid it is through additional tax revenue. Let me conclude by saying that many school committees in the state and in our own town have a history of proposing difficult decisions, encountering criticism, and then losing their nerve. That has not been your pattern. You put forward your ideas, you listen, you revise carefully, and then you stand firm. Our former moderator, Peter Haley, who some of you know, was also a distinguished member of both the Select Board, my body, and your committee, and he loved quoting poetry. So I will close tonight, as he might, with a slight paraphrase of Kipling. Keep your head when all about you are losing theirs and blaming it on you. Trust yourself when all doubt you, but make allowance for their doubting too. I thank this committee for its seriousness, its integrity, and its courage. I wish you and our schools nothing but success, and if there's anything I can ever do to help, please do not hesitate to ask.
Thank you so much, Mr. Baiani.
Julie Broderick.
Good evening. Thank you for taking my remarks at this meeting. My name is Julie Broderick. I live at 7 Kendall Street, and I'm a member of the Winchester Historical Commission and also the Historical Commission representative on the CPA committee, the WCCP. And I wrote to all of you earlier today. I'd just like to reiterate some of my remarks in that email. I strongly urge you to support the application from the Winchester Historical Society to be able to renovate the carriage house. It is not a dilapidated garage. It is a historic building that is part of a historic campus that this town has already chosen to preserve in the Sanborn House. The carriage house is an integral part of the estate, and it boggles the mind why it wasn't part of the original lease. I don't understand why that happened. I wasn't around then, and I've never really understood the reason, but that building is part of the Sanborn estate, and it should be preserved. I want to be very clear about the CPA funds. Yes, they are a surcharge on property tax dollars, but that money is set aside specifically for projects like historic preservation, open space and recreation, and affordable housing. That money is not taking anything away from school funds. It's not taking anything away from capital funds that are otherwise available to the town. And it's already written in the laws, and people have already paid into it. And I think the citizens of this town expect to see those funds used for projects that the town could not otherwise afford. And I think the carriage house is a perfect example of how these funds should be used, at least in part. And I do want to note that there's a requirement in the CPA law that 10% at a minimum of the CPA funds that are collected by the town are to go towards historic preservation. And the carriage house is exactly the kind of project that the CPA law intended when it was implemented by the state and then adopted by the town of Winchester. So, thank you very much.
Thank you, Ms. Broderick. Are there others for public comment?
I don't have any more on my list.
Thank you.
Thank you, Paris.
Good luck with Select Board tonight. All right. With that, seeing no others, I will close public comment and thank members of the community for coming and speaking with us tonight, which allows us to move back now to our business agenda a little bit ahead of schedule, which is great. I would actually like to, if it's okay with you, Dr. Hackett, I'd actually was wondering if we might slide our superintendent and chair remarks after consideration of the consent agenda in the first reading of the policy subcommittee. With that, let's move to the consent agenda. Unless there are any questions on that, I would be happy to accept a motion around the consent agenda for tonight.
So
Motion.
moved. Or seconded?
All right, we'll take a motion from Mr. Hopcroft, seconded by Ms. Minyarji. Is there any discussion? Nope. In that case, all in favor of accepting the consent agenda as presented?
Aye.
Aye. That's a unanimous vote, 5-0. Thank you so much. And I will quickly say thank you to especially Ms. Bolognese and our staff support for getting all these minutes together. There are many, many of them, as well as obviously wishing our students who are heading on to the trip to China a good voyage when it comes, although it is quite a ways down the line. So that's great. All right, let's move along to item number 5, which is the policy subcommittee memo. As you know, we have a policy where we don't take a vote on these. We just have a first read when they come to the committee. And so I will turn it over to Ms. Bolognese if there's anything you'd like to highlight from the policies that you and Mr. Belair have reviewed and voted forward.
Sure. I'll just give a few quick notes on the things to focus on because there are a lot of policies and there is a manual that's included with this. So just some of the main policies to focus on include the JKAA physical restraint, which also includes a manual of procedures. This is an update that we've taken up a couple of times over the last year and a half. The state has asked us for very specific procedures. We had put those procedures into our policy like last December. But now we've sort of cleaned up the policy, we've shortened that, and we've moved the procedures into a handbook, which is what the state's recommending. So that is what you will see there. And that is due back to the state by August 17th this year, so we'd like to have that taken care of before August 17th and before everybody splits town.
Yeah.
Next up is, let's see, we have several nursing policies this evening. The main ones here are JLCB on administration of medications and JLCBC on self-administration and self-carry of medications. The regulations that these two policies are based upon were just updated recently, or like this year, by the Department of Public Health. So Ms. Vazella, the Director of Nursing, has been working extensively with regional nurses to go through these and update the policies for Winchester and align them with the Department of Health regulation. Also, the policy subcommittee, and Mr. Belair had helped with this, has also gone through these to make sure that they're aligned with MASC requirements. And the changes were mainly around updates of delegation of emergency medications, and then also the types of school events that require nursing staff, et cetera. Otherwise, there are no changes to the other nursing policies that are listed here. And because there were no changes, we just brought them straight forward to the committee. And these, Ms. Vazella had also checked, so JLCA through JLCEA, life-threatening allergies policy statement. Those have all been checked by Ms. Vazella, and there are no changes. Then we drop down to JQ, which is student fees, fines, and charges. That's an update. That's a slightly updated policy to go along with the financial assistance work that we've been talking about related to athletic fees. So there's a minor update here and a reference to the new JQA policy, which is the financial assistance policy. And this is a new one that Mr. Marin has been working on, in which families and guardians can qualify for financial assistance. There's an accompanying spreadsheet with the different financial levels that you can see in the binder. And Mr. Marin has also included a process that's based on qualifying for free and reduced lunch, and another process if families and guardians would like to submit separately of free and reduced lunch applications. I don't know, do you have anything more?
That's perfect.
Okay. Next up is Section E, also a first read. There's a nursing policy at the beginning, EBB. ECAB has no change. EEAEA, just some minor removal of some language. And then we come to EFC, EFD. And these are also related to financial assistance, so we're also bringing these forward. Currently, the WPS manual has EFC, EFD together, so we're recommending that the school committee vote to split these into two standalone policies. So one of which would be EFC, which the Massachusetts Association of School Committees has updated to universal free school meals. So we would delete the current EFC that we have in our manual, which is old, 2015, and we'll add this MASC replacement, which codifies the state's approach to universal free school breakfast and lunch. We also have EFD, the meal charge policy. This is what Mr. Marin had updated in 2024. So there's no particular deep change, there's no change to this really, except for something really minor. I think it was a link. And this just brings this policy up to date for 2026, and it meets all the requirements of the MASC policy. And it's sort of like a bookend for the new JQ and JQA financial assistance policy, because those decisions are kind of based on our meal policy. Anything else?
Also good.
Okay. Section D. So this one, we had DDA, but the Special Education Stabilization Fund, and this had come to us maybe like last September, and we had some questions about that, about the history of the Stabilization Fund. Excuse me. So basically, this updates the name, the title, from the Special Education Stabilization Fund to the Special Education Reserve Fund. And there is a memo in your binders from the former finance director for some of the history around the setup of the stabilization fund, and then the shift of town meeting to the Special Education Reserve Fund. It also codifies the approach that we've had in place for the past few years, that we seek approval from both the select board, from the school committee approves any withdrawals from the Special Education Reserve Fund, and also the select board also approves that. And it used to be, it was town meeting, but now we've changed that. So next up, DEC, it's just an update. And then there were no changes to several of these policies, DGA or DJ and DJE. And so the only other two that I would say are with DJA, purchasing authority, there should be a correction in there. It says what had come to policy subcommittee was that contracts longer, I think we said contracts longer than 5 years need to come to the school committee for approval, but it's actually, just a correction. It should be 3 years in there. So just make note of that. And then DK on payment procedures is just updated to be consistent with our current school committee procedure, that we appoint the chair to approve the warrants, and that record of this will be made at a following school committee meeting. And then the last items, I swear, a recommendation to delete CCA, which is an organizational chart. We can just maintain that offline. I don't think it's part, the policy subcommittee did not feel that it was part of the manual that was needed. KBG around parent advisory councils is just an update to be aligned with the MASC. And then lastly, we had some facilities policies, FA and FFA on memorials. These came to the school committee in late March for the first time, but it's been a little while, so we'll just send them back up to you again as a reminder. And FA on development goals for the facilities was just updating our goals to align it with MASC, and FFA was just aligning with MASC again, so.
Thank you, Ms. Bolanese.
That was very long.
No, I appreciate are there any questions from the committee on these? I know Mr. Polaris already been through the budget subcommittee process, so I doubt you have many more, but Mr. Hopcroft, Ms. Minyarji.
I have a question and a comment. When we're talking about financial assistance policies, they're strictly applicable to students that qualify for free or reduced lunches. Are there any other metrics or parameters that are out there for students that may not qualify specifically in that category, but perhaps others, as we're looking to expand our our fees and our fee structures. Is there,
And that's correct, and that's where we were saying that there's the process if they do qualify for free and reduced lunch, but then there's also another process, I think, which is detailed in JQA.
Yes, and I can add, so we take those federal guidelines,
right?
which sort of built on homeless data, and then we sort of inflate that based on where we are locally, and we look at our comparison towns like Wellesley and Belmont, Lexington, and they use the same sort of inflationary model that takes those base rates and inflates them. And so there are now revised thresholds that are tied to this policy for folks to meet.
So say if, you know, your household should change, the structure of your household should change, but you still don't qualify for those programs. Is there an opportunity for a family to come forward and have that conversation?
Yep, yeah, we work with every family. So yeah, this is our standard process, and then we
Right.
do have support from local groups like the ANCA Foundation or ANCA that would also provide scholarships for certain individuals too,
And so
and we try
when,
to connect those dots, yeah.
so, excellent. So there are paths for families that may not qualify for those programs, but do need financial assistance, even if it's temporary financial assistance due to a transition in a household or whatever the circumstance may be.
Yep,
And they would have the conversation with the building administrator?
yes, yeah, usually
That-
it starts there, and then either
Yeah.
I get involved or we can connect them to some grants that we have too.
And the first thing it says is that everything is confidential, right? All of these conversations would be confidential.
Yes.
Excellent, great. And then one regarding the Special Education Reserve Fund. I found the history to be very illuminating. That was very
isn't that-
interesting how we would break out a special education budget separate from the school's budget. And, because at first I looked at the budget, I'm like, wow, 35 million in 2013. Oh, wait, the special education budget was separate, and it was about $10 million. And that we moved away from that practice. So thank you for bringing that to my attention. I had no idea about it.
I just happened upon that memo.
Oh.
I don't know what I think I
And
was
that's-
just doing a little Google through our drive.
And that's why we love having you leading this effort, because Ms.
Thank you,
Bolanese has
Policy
an
Subcommittee.
incredible ability to turn up context and
Yeah,
information.
it was
and
from
guys do.
2020.
We're very grateful
I think
for
you
that.
guys do, that's not me.
Yes.
I was inspired.
Any other comments or questions? All right, so with that, I will say thank you very much to Ms. Bolanese and Mr. Belair for your amazing work. I miss being a member of the Policy Subcommittee, especially given.
Welcome anytime. Public meetings.
They are public meetings, but of course, we have to, try to conduct them without a quorum of the committee, even though we do post them. But thank you so much for all of this. We will look forward to voting on this at our next regular meeting. Obviously, reach out to the chair of the policy subcommittee with any questions between now and then, but otherwise, we'll look forward to putting that probably on the consent agenda at the next meeting. So thank you for your work.
And then it will be ready, I think we'll be pretty much ready for the manual to go to the MASC.
We're there,
We are
which has taken a
A
long
while.
time. So.
But we are there.
We have not fully, and for those who are just tuning in, we have not fully reviewed that manual since 2015. So it's been, this effort has been underway for a long time, but the last time actual updates were made by the school committee was 11 years ago. So it's great that we've had Ms. Bolanese leading this effort, even when she was chair of the full committee. So, all right, thank you for that. I will move along to item number 6. Actually, let's jump back to our superintendent and chair remarks. Item number 3, if Dr. Hackett, you want to take it away, and I'll just add a couple things.
I would be pleased to, and actually I'm going to yield some of my time, if not most of my time, to Dr. Ellen Amos to talk a little bit about Professional Development Day, and I know you had a couple of things you wanted to update the committee on.
Sure. Could I?
She needs a microphone, though.
Thank
so
you.
Thank you.
Thank you. We had a fabulous professional development today, just what everyone is hoping for on June 29th. But it went great. At the elementary focus was for at least the morning for everyone, and for most elementary folks, the whole day was on the arts and letters. I debriefed with quite a few people. The presenters that they sent out did a great job, really helping everyone to have what they needed at that high-level overview. So now in the summer, they can dig in and start working together and get ready to implement in the fall. So we're very excited about that. At the secondary level, they did building and department work, and then also on our pathways that different people are working on. I myself was in an awesome anti-bias PD from 1 to 3. There were lots of opportunities for some of the elementary folks, and then for the secondary folks in the afternoon as well. So very successful, positive day. And just to give a little update on our technology usage committee, which Ms. Bolognese and Mr. Belair are on. We had a great couple of kickoff meetings. We formed subcommittees, and those subcommittees will be working over the summer and into the next school year. So we will, the process will take what the process will take to be data informed and kind of go through. So we don't have an exact timeline on it, but we do want to just share that everyone is well aware of how we're working on this and being very mindful about the choices that we're making around technology usage before we come up with some consistent guidelines for the district for the different ages and stages from preschool to 22. And thinking about the diverse needs of all of our students and how different students need different things and how we provide both those supports as well as ensure that in addition to we talk a lot about the difference between gaining technology skills and the what we know most of our students are all very proficient with technology for entertainment and communication, but not necessarily proficient with all of the tools that they need for future grades, for college, for the world of work. So working very hard to balance that also with their needs around social and emotional learning and interpersonal learning and all of those skills that will be super important for them as well. So our intention is to come probably quarterly and do an update for the committee and for the public, and then we'll also be posting on our website the work that we're doing, and so that people can be informed as well as participants. So we will be doing surveys. We will probably do some focus groups through the process as the subcommittees develop what's the data that's needed, what else do we need to know. That will inform the kinds of surveys, research, and focus groups that we'll do going forward. We've also reached out to, as we start with our process, we will be reaching out to people in industry, people in higher education, and we already reached out and have some volunteers of our recent alums in the past 6 to 7 years so that they can give us some feedback about their college experiences and their early work experiences around what they were prepared for, what they needed, and what they may have wished in hindsight that they had more or less of as they went through the education process. So we will continue to bring updates, happy to answer questions when we have some work to share, and we will be as transparent as possible through the whole process. So thank you.
Any other?
So we've been a lot of time spent on staffing assignments. We, as you know, made multiple reductions through the course of the budget process. None of them were easy. We have we've had some position shifts, we've had some people shifts, and I'm knock on wood, I believe we're pretty close to being done with the assignments, with the understanding that with special education, related service providers, as you know, things can change today to tomorrow. Move-ins, changes in IEPs that might happen. So those are always kind of in flux in our adjustment, which is true every year, but it just does feel different this year because in the context of all the other changes that we've gone through. We have, I believe, 3 open classroom positions now, which were the ones that were added, which is a grade 4 classroom at VO and a grade 4 and grade 5 at Lynch due to enrollment increases. Lynch has gained over 20 students since April. Registering for next year, they didn't come yet, which is high. So I think it's, you build it and they will come, maybe partly being realized by the schools. So those numbers will continue to be monitored over the course of the summer. We might have some shifts, we might have some enrollment pressures. We'll certainly keep you updated if we need to do anything differently, so.
All right.
Yeah.
So I will just say very briefly, it is the end of the school year. And so since we last met, we've had the end of the school year, the moving up ceremony, which unfortunately I was not able to attend, but I knew at least 2 of our members
Yes.
were there for at McCall last week. I think was a great and celebratory moment for our middle school students who will be moving up to Winchester High School in the fall. We also, I believe 4 of the 5 of us attended high school graduation, which while a little hot and being baked in the sun, the weather was excellent, and we were really grateful to be able to celebrate one of our largest classes in a long time. The elementary schools have wrapped up as well. There were lots of end-of-year events, and obviously, as I've said before, I think everyone was very much feeling the May-cember or June-cember pressures as the year wrapped up. I will also say, while she is not with us tonight, Ms. Lori Kirby is coming very close to her actual date of retirement from the Winchester Public Schools, which I believe is on June 30th. And we have, on behalf of the committee, sent her flowers as well as a card. We are very grateful for her service over the many years she's been in Winchester. Ms. Kirby was a member of staff in this district for 34 years, including as principal of Morocco Elementary, as well as our director of personnel, and then later as assistant superintendent of elementary education. And we are extremely grateful for the work that she's done in this district, and particularly her leadership of the literacy initiative at the elementary level over the past 2 years. I also wanted to say that we have definitely heard quite a bit of feedback from the community via email around sports fees. I do not want, though the number of public comments tonight was not particularly large, we did have some public comments in the past, and we've received an incredible number of emails right up until meeting time today regarding that. So we're aware of the fact that community members have expressed their feelings. We've had a lot, obviously, to consider, and we'll make a final decision tonight, but I did want to flag for folks that we have received a number of comments via email as well. I'll wrap up by saying that I'm excited to look forward. We have 2, if it's okay with Dr. Hackett's permission, we have 2 open searches going on for very key roles in the district. One of them is the Assistant Superintendent for Elementary Education. Dr. Elenema and I have spent an incredible amount of time together over the past week, both interviewing as well as looking at performance tasks from our candidates, and we're looking forward to the committee, the hiring committee, making a recommendation to the superintendent on that role in the next week or so. We also have an open, important role for an athletic director, and look forward to working with that person to do some of the things that have been outputs of the athletic fees examination process once that person is brought on board with us for the fall.
And I'll just briefly mention, because you touched on it, and I wasn't going to touch on it, but I'm going to mention it anyway. So the high school search team has forwarded a couple of names to me, so I'm in the process of reviewing those. And I will be reaching out to various community members potentially over the next few days to schedule some time for people to get to meet. Obviously, it's a difficult time to bring people fully together, but it also depends on where we land with the number of candidates that actually, when we go through the vetting process and reference checks that remain. So I'll keep you posted.
Yeah. So one process is, I think, a little bit further ahead, and one is still to come. So that's great. With that, I will move on from our superintendent and chair remarks to the next item on our agenda, which is regarding the budget subcommittee update, and specifically starting with consideration of approval of our program for FY27 athletic program fees. So, Mr. Marin, I'll turn it over to you for an update. So the budget subcommittee did meet last week, at the very end of last week,
Yeah.
to have further discussion. We did that meeting publicly. It's available for folks, but I think you're going to review kind of the high-level items that we have from that meeting.
Was that meeting posted to /budget?
/budget.
Okay.
It's there.
So
Yep.
winchesterps.org/budget, if you'd like to rewatch that
FY27.
conversation.
It's under FY27.
FY27, okay.
Excellent. Thank you.
Thanks. Take it away, Mr. Marin.
All right, so these slides are from that meeting. I'll scroll through. So the task was for the budget subcommittee, and has been revisiting athletics fees. And the committee came up with these 2 options. So option 1 being a flat fee structure that's charging the same amount for all sports, all participants. And option 2 is a tiered structure. which had a flat fee for most sports, about $600, and then had a higher tiered fee for select sports that have higher kind of operating overhead to them or related around facility charges. And so takeaway from the meeting prior to this was to get further community engagement. So we developed a survey based on these options, and on these slides are those results from the survey. So I'll run through some of them here. So some takeaways were there's a majority of folks who preferred that tiered structure, about 58%, and 60% of those responding said they found it to be the more fair way to go about the increase. And there was another takeaway that participation would remain high, but some were sort of like they're cautious or let us know that it may prevent them from maybe having a student try another sport or participate in multiple sports if the fees are too high. Then we also asked about financial assistance, just awareness in general, if they were aware of our policy being developed, and then would they apply. So majority were aware of it, about 80%, and 50% stated that they may be likely to apply for assistance. 15%, yep. And so the survey results, we had about 502 participants. And so the initial link went out to those families at the high school currently and to those families that would be entering the high school next year. So current 8th graders going out there. There's also a public link, so if it was shared, other people could weigh in. But it's mostly targeted to those families there. So this is a breakdown of what the next year grade participation was expected to be. And this is the breakdown of the fee option and the preference there. So you can see that option B, the tiered structure, about 58%, 38% being that flat fee, and then 4% saying no preference.
I'm sorry, can you go over the other question too?
Yep.
Main reason for preference.
So that was that reasoning, majority saying about fairness.
Mr. Marin, I was curious, do we know how many people of the 500, what the breakdown is in terms of people who are in those 4 athletic programs versus the others? Because it seems that people who are in those programs would want to go one way and people who are in the others would want to go the other way. Just curious. Or maybe that's coming up.
Yes.
I did look through
Yeah.
these earlier, but.
Hang on, I'll break down some
Great.
detail here. Yeah. This question looked into how likely a student would be to enroll in a sport next year. So you can say about a majority said they were very likely or somewhat. And then would the fee increase make their child less likely, no change, or more likely to participate? And so majority were saying there'd be no change, 36% said less likely, and then a few said more likely, which we weren't sure if they misunderstood the question there. But and that's the finance piece I spoke to you. And so, yeah, Mr. Hopcroft, this is sort of the breakdown by sport. So we tried to gauge what your preference was and which sports your student would be anticipated in participating in. So this is the breakdown of all the sports. So if you would just look at fall, who's going to be on what sport, and then the next page is those who's going to be in what sport tied to how they answered the survey, and it's sort of in alignment with where you were thinking. So if you're playing hockey, you're more in favor of the split the fee option A broadly across all, or if you're in a sport such as track and field, you would want that lower fee. That's kind of how we're seeing it here. And so that breaks it down for fall, winter, and spring. And then we wrapped up with the next steps being that, so the short term was this recommendation of the school committee to review this and vote on a final fee for tonight, so we can post it this week and have folks start registering for fall. We have the process ongoing for hiring and onboarding the new athletic director, hopefully all wrapped up by this midsummer. And then the longer term, planning for that future in the FY28 and beyond. So doing sort of a deeper dive into our fees and their structure, and what the future should be for athletics. So, and I think that's a commitment from this committee about developing a working group and broader community engagement to further develop that and make recommendations. So I'll pause here.
Thank you, Mr. Marin. So we've discussed this at length. The budget subcommittee has done extra work to prepare for this tonight.
We've had 8 meetings
We've had 8 meetings.
on athletic fees.
Yep. And I think based on where we are, just to sort of put a fine point on what Mr. Marin said, we are in need of rolling this out very quickly. So this needs to essentially be implemented this week in order to get us up and running for the fall. And so the way that I framed it with Ms. Minyarji when we met the last time for budget subcommittee was that we were hoping to put in place, just like we had a bridge budget for this year, we're hoping to put in place a bridge structure for the athletics fee program for just this year. And then one of the things we hope that the new athletic director will be able to do is to undertake a more systemic review. Obviously, we've gotten quite a bit of information from Mr. Marin, but there are definitely other things that I think we would like to see, maybe some things that in terms of fee structure aren't even really possible with the systems we have right now. And so I think the reason why the budget subcommittee decided to forward to you sort of an option A and an option B is because based on the timing, the available tools that we have for collecting fees right now, as well as the very large amount of research that's been done already, this is kind of where I think our decision point is for this coming school year. It does not preclude us from looking at another structure with the new athletic director's collaboration for next year that might be more complex than sort of option A and option B that are out there tonight. So what I would say is let's focus really on the choice between option A and option B tonight, and then we can put it on the agenda for Dr. Hackett, Mr. Marin, and the new athletic director to come back to us with more information once we get through this bridge year. But I will open it up to questions. Sort of, what we're really trying to narrow down is whether the committee consensus is more at option 1 or option 2.
Just, if I may add two things. One, I think in budget sub, we came to the conclusion that we have shorter term goals and longer term goals with where we want to go with fees and the fee structure and the analysis that's needed for the fee structure, a way that looks at costs and a way to distribute the tax subsidy in an equitable way across different sports. But also, we have to implement this week, but knowing that that's an imperfect system, but with the eye on getting better data and making better decisions and having a better process in place with the new AD over the next year. The other thing is we want to consider option A and B, and also being mindful of the family cap. So that's part of the discussion as well.
So that was, as you know, one of the things we brought back was having the family cap be applicable. We, during our discussion, had come to making that applicable up to 5 sport fees, right? So within a family. So the idea would be once you get to your 5th sport fee, then you would not pay further sports fees over that cap of 5. So that's the proposal that we are bringing forward as sort of part of both option 1 and option 2. And I would say we have quite a bit of data already. I think there's 2 things that I personally would like to see moving into next year, and one of them is to really tighten up around the shared district-wide costs. So we know that we have significant costs around transporting students to and from practices and games. We know we have substantial district-wide costs around overtime for our custodians who are actually maintaining the facilities that our sports are happening at within the district. And we also have overtime costs from the Winchester Police Department for providing public safety either at events that are in the district or in some unique cases like hockey where we've been asked by the city of Woburn to provide additional police coverage because of things going on in the fan section this year. We had to add Winchester Police police coverage, which the school district pays overtime for those games as well. So those are sort of the biggest three of the buckets, I would say, that are the sort of district-wide shared costs. And so I personally would like to see sort of more clarity around those and understanding our opportunities around that for next year. I'd also like to know a bit more about the sort of per student cost by sport so that we can really zero in on our staffing levels and expenditures. Because going back to what Select Board Member Michelle Pryor said, we really as a town do operate very much on an a la carte model. And I think, for better or worse, given where things landed with the override, this is very much continuing to be an a la carte model for how to close that gap in the overall $1.4 roughly million sports budget that we have. We really need to make up that six-figure amount of money, and the proposal in front of us tonight is to choose between option one and option two, knowing, of course, that we can't predict consumer behavior with 100% accuracy, and so we will very likely have to continue reviewing this and potentially revisit it during the 26-27 school year. Questions? Sorry, I just wanted to make sure we really set the table well.
I do have a clarifying question. How does the family cap work in the option two? Do people get, say you have 4 kids and they're each doing 3 sports or some large number like that? Do you take the lowest 5 fees?
So the way we envisioned it was we take the first 5 fees.
Well, yes, so I think the way the system currently is set up, it's not based on dollars, right? It's based on number of participations, right?
Yeah, right now they equal each other, but reinstating this cap would just be your first 5 times participating. So
the first 3 in the fall, say all your kids are doing it, well, maybe you have 4 kids, so 4 in the fall and then
3
the
and
first.
2, yeah.
Yeah.
And so there would not be a dollar cap, it'd just be a participation cap.
So, but that's a good question. When you're looking at the tiered structure, it's a little bit more complicated for implementing a family cap, whereas if we just look at option one, which I think has ease of implementation, because of the survey results, and you saw how, parents are hesitant to let their student, try something new. I feel like if we go towards a family cap that's like 3 sports, at least that gives them an option to, or at least the ability, the financial ability to try something new. And that's easier to implement under a flat fee structure. For tiered fees, right, so if you're a hockey family, that's equivalent almost to 2 sports, right? That's actually, I'm sorry, more than 2 sports of what we're calling other sports in option 2. So in that case, then the family cap, I don't know if that makes sense.
There are some football players who also play hockey.
We could set a dollar amount like this. Your recommendation is based off of number of sports, but we can decide if we want it to be, say, $3,000 or $3,300
Right.
on either side.
We could, but
Yeah, the system right now cannot handle a dollar threshold on a tiered model.
correct.
It
For
can
the
handle
tiered model.
a cap on how many times you participate.
Correct.
Okay, that's good to know.
This is part of why I raised the issue about system capacity, because the system bases that on number of fees paid as opposed to dollar amount of fees paid.
Yeah.
So one of the things that we had discussed in budget sub was whether it was possible to set a dollar amount, and the reason why we've settled on number of sport fees paid is because of the limitation from a systems perspective, which I acknowledge is not,
Right.
Obviously the best reason for that, but it is a reality of the current way that we collect these fees.
And so for myself, unless there are any other questions, for myself, I feel like I'm leaning towards option 1 with a cap of 3 sports for 2 reasons. Ease of implementation, and this is something that we need to do right now. Option 2 is still flawed because football is more expensive than $600 per participant, because we're not also factoring in any field costs that fall on the municipal side, right? We're not paying for that field maintenance. And they have a higher operating budget. However, so it doesn't really address the inequity concerns entirely. it's complicated to implement. It's complicated to implement the family cap. So, in my opinion, I think option one for this bridge year, to give the AD an opportunity to get a working group set up, get parents and students and coaches together to put together a tiered fare structure, which I feel like that's where we're going, that works for FY28 and beyond, because we want this to be a sustainable process. We want to look at sponsorships and ticket sales and advertising, all these things that we can factor into an operating budget year after year, so we have a more reliable and robust fee structure. And also, I had one more point. It escaped me. It'll come to me.
Okay, just following up on that, and I actually should back up because I was jumping into just a question and say that I understand the timeliness of needing to do something now. And so the bridge approach, I think, is good because there's a vast amount of information that I think we would all like to see because we don't nearly have just the tip of the iceberg we're going to make decisions on here. So, equity between sports, all sorts of stuff that so we're making decisions based on imperfect data because we don't have enough time to get all the data, which we will have a process to get, and having a new director will make that all possible. I was going to ask, we're choosing between, well, first of all, I wanted to give you a hard time and say, so where's the recommendation?
I just gave you mine.
But since we have two, thank you. Yeah, you did give one. But so we have the choice of two options, and then Ms. Minyarji raises the third piece of this, which is the cap. And I'm wondering, I don't know how much flexibility we have around this. And I'm kind of looking at Mr. Marin around, there's obviously a financial impact to going to 3. You put 5 in for some reason. Is there?
Hypothetically.
Right. Well, I mean, could we do 2? Is there a magic, or maybe a question? Ms.
So
Minyarji,
I
how
was
did you
thinking that
come
the
to 3?
increase is about 55%. So that's an increase also for the family cap. And our current family cap is around 3.5 for sports, right? The current family cap is 1,400.
450.
So it's four sports.
It's 4 sports. So 4 times 400, 16.
The current cap is $1,450, so I guess there's a little bit of a discount.
Yeah.
On
it's-
that fourth sport.
Yes, historically, it's just the fee times 4. And then we chose not to go up the full extra $100 this year, but.
So it's
yeah,
applying that same.
So just on number 1, right now for modeling option 1, sort of all things being equal, taking current year participation, carrying forward to next year. Option 1 with the family cap of 3 would benefit about 60 families, and your operating deficit would be about $70,000 on that, all things being equal. So if you had a 10% decrease in participation, it'd be about $110,000 deficit on that.
I thought that was modeled on 4, which is our current cap.
That was on 3. 4 would then kind of take you back to, I think it's about $50,000 deficit.
Right, but what I'm saying is, I think we had modeled the behavior around 4, because we know how many, because the current cap is 4, and it's
Yep.
possible because each of the fees is equal, so it's a certain amount, but the current cap is 4, right? And we know what the number of families have been that have taken advantage of that with 4 sports fees as being the current family cap, correct?
Correct,
So we
yeah.
know that number is actually based on the current, so we know the number of families that take advantage at 4, right? Or did you model 3 as well?
Yes, not for budget sub, but for this discussion today.
Got it,
for the
okay.
model.
So can you say the difference between, because I am just gonna, I try not to get into the weeds as chair early, but I think we had discussed, that I think at budget sub, the discussion was to move it down from 5. So I think sort of Ms. Minyarji was at 3, I think I was at 4. And so I think we were kind of, it's interesting that it ended up at 5. I think it's just because what was there before, but
Yeah, that was
I think
from
we
there,
were
yeah.
thinking about lowering the family cap to either 3 or 4 sport fees. And so I just don't know if there's the number of families that would take advantage of the family cap at 3, the fees being capped at 3 or the fees being capped at 4. Sorry, this is just so complicated.
Yeah, so this is how I modeled that flat fee option. Again, with a lot of asterisks that everything else remains the same. But, So cap at 3 would create a deficit of 70,000, cap at 4, 30,000. If you reduce participation, based on some surveys, by 5%, then this is how that may impact your,
But the surveys did tell us that participation is going to be impacted.
right, yeah, but is that 5%, 10%, I'm not sure. So,
Right,
So I chose
right.
5% here to model it.
Well, and the impact will happen from all the people that don't reach the cap also, because their fees all went up. Right?
Correct.
So it's likely that we're going to have at least 5%, I think. What's our capacity to manage a deficit? I mean, we pretty much don't have any money, right? We just laid off a bunch of teachers.
We will, yes. It would have to be, we're not done with the budget yet, so in terms
Adding
of
teachers.
really analyzing the budget, we've got a new AD coming on, hopefully shortly, within the next couple of weeks. They definitely will obviously help that process. Andrew and I have become more familiar with the athletic budget over the last few weeks. We do think that there are some places where we could get some efficiencies. I think we need to talk about some additional revenue sources like gate receipts, potentially some fundraising, potentially sponsorships.
Cost coverage.
Cost coverage. It would be a combination of all those things. As I've said from the beginning, like, the survey is helpful in terms of just giving a kind of a broad overview of what people think right now, right? So, and I would just caution you that whatever we do, I am not counting on us. I would say we're going to get between maybe 80 and 85% of any projection for fees that we put out. I don't, when we look at this, the numbers are real, I mean, certainly, but they are projections. And to the questions earlier, we don't know what parents are going to do. We don't know what kids are going to do. And, we're already late out on these fees. I know club having to commit to clubs has already happened. So I don't know what the impact of that's going to be. So I just want to say that it's probably not going to be better than this, no matter what you decide to do.
How do people, are they enrolling in spring sports now? So you
No.
No.
I mean,
Fall.
right.
Fall.
So is
Fall
it-
isn't even open yet.
right,
Well,
so-
but
It's
so
going to be tomorrow.
I guess.
need to very soon.
Yeah.
Up until like the beginning of the sports season, you can register,
Right,
like
so-
even during tryouts for
so
the
I-
spring sports in March. You
So I
can
mean,
register.
I'm fully supportive of the decision that we made to keep all of the programs that we have, but I wonder if there are opportunities, if your revenue isn't there, to do a lighter version of some of the programs or have less
Right,
resources.
so that will be part of the budget review too. I mean, we can't say, sitting here right now, that we're going to run every single program in the same way that we've run every single program for the last several years. I mean, we might have to make some decisions around how many games do we schedule that are away games for, sub-varsity freshman teams? Do we, are there ways to schedule games and create a schedule that is less expensive, so to speak?
Right.
So all of those things will continue to be looked at before the season begins. And we don't have a huge window on that for fall, obviously, but we definitely have it for winter and spring.
Right, well, I was gonna say, we have to make our best guesses here, but
Right.
and when I'm looking at these deficits and knowing that we could have greater attrition, which could cause a bigger deficit, to know that we sort of, fall will be locked in on our expense lines, but later in the year, there might be opportunities to make that up, so we have.
Correct.
So,
On the expense side.
yeah, so I was trying to figure out
Yes.
how are we gonna,
Yep.
if we want to choose a direction here that is, more beneficial, I guess, to the families now, and then if they don't show up, we can make that up later, it sounds like. I mean, some of it.
Yep, that's the scenario, right,
Yeah.
right.
I think I won't be supporting, or I will be supporting the tiered structure. I think, to take a step back, like we really have 4 options here. We have option 1, option 2, and then we have cut further into academics, which obviously we don't want to do, and then we have reduced programs in our athletics, which we've also talked about not doing. So I do just want to name that this is where we are, but this is a prioritization of preserving athletic programs and preserving academics.
I think you even went more not just that we don't want to do, that we're not going to cut into academics. I mean, you are all very clear
Yes,
about that.
and we've already had to do that.
Correct.
Yes, as we've discussed.
Yes, just want to make sure that, yes.
Yeah, at length. But I think, like, if we're asking a family that has a child that runs cross country to pay $675 to run in the Fells or run laps around Horn Pond, when they can get a gym membership at the YMCA for like $40 or at Planet Fitness for $15 a month, that just doesn't sit right with me. I think, like, I think in the flat 675 structure, there is a concern of like, well, that'll allow we heard from parents who came to the last meeting that we had here that, maybe my child wouldn't have tried a certain sport because of the tiered structure. I worry that with a 675 fee, we will have students that won't try a sport at all because it'll all be too expensive and at cost. And some sports, frankly, just cost more. And I think we need to take that into account. I also do want to name that I think I think I've been frustrated. I'm sure the budget subcommittee has been very frustrated working on this since February and still not having enough information and data to give us that long-term plan. Like to have 8 meetings and to still be having a kind of a bridge athletic fee structure in the next year, I think is frustrating. And I'm looking forward to that work next school year with the new athletic director to help guide us and get that. Get more data around that. So I will be supporting the second option for the family cap. I am flexible just to give folks a sense of where I'm at, but that's my general thinking and how I'm coming into the conversation.
I would just say one thing. The target changed in terms of what the goal was with the conversation around athletic fees. So we talk about athletic fees every single year, and that process is what we do as part of the budget process. It clearly changed when the override didn't pass and we were into reductions across all programs. So, and then really trying to figure out at the level of detail on the fly, an entirely different structure would not have been something I would have recommended the committee to do from the beginning. So I appreciate all of what everybody has said. Clearly, we have some sports that cost more. And that I would agree with you. I mean, I think the benefit of kids being part, if you are a highly competitive athlete and you are going to be recruited, for example, you're not going to get recruited from the YMCA. So we offer a real venue for our top athletes if they choose to stay here, right? And we know that behaviors are going to be affected, but we do have a lot of kids that go on and do some level of competition beyond high school. That's the value. Is it $675 for cross-country or track person? I don't know, right? I think everyone has the same concern about the higher rate per sport. And I think the advantage of it is that it is essentially the same model we currently have, right? I think you could easily make the argument that where we are right now is too high, right? This past year was too high for some of our sports, but we've not been in a place where we've been really ready to shift the model. And Ms. Banerjee said it the other day in Budget Summit. The biggest piece of this is community buy-in. Right, and I think if we're really going to shift the model, not that people are going to be happy with whatever happens here, right? But we have the reality of a gap. If we're really going to shift the model, that has to be a larger community conversation, and people who are really vested, who understand the programs better than we do, need to be really solid at that table. That's just not what we've been. So,
Yeah, I might add that prior to the override, we talked about could we eliminate fees at some point?
yep, we were pretty excited about the possibility.
We were, and obviously since the override, with very limited staff, you guys have had a lot on your plate with the academic side. But
And I'm not trying to make excuses, and I agree with you. You don't have much data to make a significant change, and that's what I'm saying. Going to a per sport kind of a thing and trying to parse out, what's district-wide, program-wide costs from police coverage to whatever. you don't have enough information. I would not feel comfortable recommending any significant change in the structure right now, because I just don't think, one, we can handle it from a system standpoint, which is an unfortunate limitation. But also, we just haven't had enough conversation as a community either on that. So,
Are the systems limitations part of the review process over the course of the year too?
it will be.
Yeah.
I mean, I think we have quite a, so I just want to say, because we do have quite a bit of information,
You do,
right?
you do.
And I think it's, I don't want to create a misleading impression that we don't,
Yep.
haven't done a lot
Yep.
of analysis and uncovered a lot in terms of the costs, right? So the budget that was actually posted on the website is fairly specific. I mean, there are costs that, as I said at the beginning, I'd like to see the district-wide costs allocated more, specifically. But at the same time, we sort of broadly know what the more expensive sports are, what the less expensive sports are. I think Mr. Belair highlighted that, right, to an extent. But, I think back to when we started the post-override discussion regarding tiered fee structure, and we actually did have quite a bit of discussion about these are the ones where there are unusually high facility costs, right? So the tiered fee levels are actually, largely accounting for the fact that we have to pay costs to outside vendors that come directly out of our budget for these 4 sports. Obviously because, and we should name it, Winchester does not have an ice rink, nor does it have a swimming pool, nor does it have a golf course that is owned by the town, right? So the tennis, somewhat complicated because of the courts that we use, obviously also reflected in the fact that it's a fairly small delta between the base fee and the other one. The other thing I wanted to say is, I think also to your point, Dr. Hackett, this town is actually, because of what happened with the override, when our override happened, the budget pressures that we've had, and the fact that we haven't raised fees for the past, with the exception of $50, we really haven't raised fees for the past 7 years. The reality is we're kind of at the bleeding edge of this, for better or worse, right? And there are other towns, I did some research myself. Bridgewater Raynham, I believe, was one that has actually implemented a different structure. They're actually moving more towards something more like the tiered fees. Beverly also, very much looked into doing a sort of high-cost, low-cost option. So sort of, more like option 1, except broken out like for the cluster of sports that cost the district a little bit more versus a little bit less. So, not necessarily the tiered fee, but a tiered fee within the flat fee structure. So there are certainly options, but let us just be very clear about the fact that all of these financial pressures, as manifest in our own override failure, are coming to a head around the Commonwealth. And so I'd expect we're actually going to see, the other reason why I would like to call it a bridge is because I expect we're going to see more changes in other districts over the course of the next year as they start to figure out that they're having really severe budget challenges and their sports programs are costing them a certain amount of money and they're not sort of fully funded by the fees that historically have been used. Because we've been sort of tracking other districts in Massachusetts up until now. And now, as the budget pressures that communities are facing have become very difficult to manage, they're having to come up with alternative options. And, we're frankly, I don't, some of you may know, I was interviewed by CBS, but, because of the fact that we are at the leading edge of what's happening in Massachusetts. And so, there is a sort of curiosity about this. Certainly, very few other communities have experimented. But in our case, it's because we have a deficit that has built up over a number of years, and we've been able to offset that deficit with the money from the athletics revolving account that we built up during program cessation during COVID. So,
And I just want to add that intentionally.
yeah,
Right? I mean, a decision for us to spend down reserves was a very intentional one coming out of COVID. We didn't know what participation was going to look like. My first year here, 21-22, we weren't even running athletics programs. I mean, so, this isn't a mismanagement
Correct.
question. This was let's keep this affordable. We don't really want to raise fees right now. Families are going through a lot. And we had some reserves that came out of COVID from revolving accounts from fees that we were sitting on, and it just, we couldn't raise fees when we were sitting on $500,000, $600,000. So we kind of returned that back to our families by not increasing fees and by offsetting the budget with what was in that balance. So there's been some statements that have been made that I think are unfortunate and not only inaccurate but misleading. So I just want to be clear on that. I also want to say, this isn't because this is not by itself because the override didn't pass. What happened with the override not passing is us cutting 32 positions. On top of now, we're looking at athletics. So this isn't like us picking on athletics and trying to balance the budget off of the backs of fees for athletics. We run a comprehensive program, pre-K through 12. We charge preschool tuition. We've looked at that. We are looking at everything because we have to deal with the reality of the fact that our revenue is not keeping pace with expenses, which has also been true for several years now. So,
And we've had an increase. We've had an increase in transportation fees and in preschool fees. So it's definitely not the only thing.
correct.
Yeah, there's been a lot of confusion. I mean, so as I look through the communications that we've had, one of the things that was brought up was, why is it that transportation and overtime for custodians is included in the athletics budget? It's because that's not just what you see in the athletics budget around transportation and custodial is specifically related to athletics.
Right.
We are seeing those budget pressures, those increases in costs across the board for transportation and overtime, right? Obviously, our union agreements with our police, with our DPW employees, they have salary increases baked into them as well. So obviously, our costs are going up as well. But the stuff that's actually in the athletics budget is directly related to athletics, right? We are seeing things across the board for transportation, but the line item for transportation in the athletics budget is just related to transporting students to and from athletics events. So
this is good, and I think it's good for the community to understand a lot of this. I actually wanted to drill in on just one thing you had said, Dr. Matthews, about the fact that we don't own a swimming pool or a hockey rink or a golf course and things like that. We have as a community spread the cost of redoing the high school gym floor or our turf fields or other assets, and so we do invest in facilities that cause us to not have fees for those, but we're paying for them still. So just when we think about this stuff, we could invest in a swimming pool as a community and have that on our tax rolls too. We just chose to invest in some areas and not others. And so just when I look at this, it's just another, data point I put out there that, it's a choice and we're paying for it either way, whether we own it or not. We paid for it, or we're paying for it, I guess, because it's probably bonded still over many years.
So in terms of moving forward, I think we should move to some kind of a motion. I will say for my own sake, unless I don't know where Ms. Bolanese and Mr. Hopcroft are, we've had Ms. Minyarji and Mr. Belair. I kind of know where I am, which is I'm leaning more towards option 2 at this point, and I definitely think we should reduce the family cap to anything over 4 sports at a minimum. So I would be open to considering 3 as well. But I think based on the data that Mr. Marin showed, I would be more comfortable setting it at 4 sports fees as opposed to 5, which is currently shown on the screen.
Could I just ask, so with tier 2,
What's option 2?
Option 2.
Sorry, I'm mixing up conversations. So with option 2, if of your 4 sports, and I think we were saying it's the first 4 sports. So if you had football or soccer, a fall sport, $600, but then perhaps in the winter you decide to play hockey, so another $14.75 or whatever the number was, and then maybe in the spring you play something else that's another $675. What if you were?
Which one is the free one?
Yeah. Well, no, but then what if another student went and played soccer? Sorry, I have a football player. Played football, then ran track in the winter, ran spring track in the spring. So they had like 3 sports that were just $675, or 3 or 4 sports that were $675. But then with the hockey person, then you'd get $675, $14.45, another 675, another
It's-
675. So
What's your question?
does that work? Does that work? I mean, I guess that's just what that particular family would face.
That is-
So,
I think from
because
a systems
those are the choices
standpoint-
that they made.
That's the math.
Yeah, so I think that's why, I mean, I agree it should be a tiered fee structure. The only reason why I went for the flat fee structure because of ease of implementation with the current systems that we have. You know, I do believe that there should be, you know, a cost that's reflective of, a fee that's reflective of the underlying cost. Absolutely. But I think that's the problem, is implementing it right now with the systems that we have today. Unless there's a way, Andrew, if we could do like, if you do
Not yet.
hockey because it's 1,400, Dr. Marin, if we can give them like 2 credits, right? So you know what I mean? So if you do like a hockey fee, then that goes 2 credits towards the cap. I don't know. That's the tricky part
Yeah.
with the current
Systems-
systems that we have.
I cannot handle that, but current systems can handle either of these options with a cap based on participation.
Based on number of
Not on
participations.
dollars.
Yep.
Right.
So
So in a way, if you play 3 other sports, you get kind of a better deal, right?
Yes, if you play more than 4 sports in a 4-cap model, your
Or
sports
The
5
birth
through
rate's
whatever.
going to go sky high next year. That's what I'm anticipating.
Well, it's going to take them,
Families
what,
of 8.
14
That
years
would
to
take
get
a
to the
little
high
Right,
school.
well, you know what, though?
The high
There's-
school.
Our families plan ahead.
Right.
I mean,
So, I mean, I would be happy to go to option 2 with a family cap of 3 sports with no clue how you're going to implement that.
I guess I'm a little bit concerned that, I guess I also favor the idea of going to tier, or to going to an option, or having the tiered, that's where it's coming from, having tiered fees for the sports. Because I do think that there are some sports that are more expensive, and I do think that there are other sports, like track, like ultimate frisbee, that have been taking on some of the burden of those
Yeah.
other sports. So I definitely think that this deeper dive into this over this next year is very important. And I think that in the end, yeah, we should probably end up at a tiered level of fees for our sports. I guess I just wonder this year, in I guess the bridge year,
yeah.
both budget-wise and then process-wise, and then with the limitations around our system, I don't know if that would change in the next year. But I guess I just wonder if it pays to take the time to make that decision carefully, to look at the costs across these other sports, and make a careful decision
So-
before we move to tiered.
I would just say, and that's my concern. Because if you go down the path of a tiered fee structure right now, that's very hard to unwind. And maybe you don't care about unwinding it. Maybe that's what we're going to do, and you're comfortable saying that we're setting the direction now for multiple years. But you're unlikely to revisit that decision in the same way that if let's say you had no family cap and you decided to implement a family cap, or you decided to eliminate the family cap. Those are decisions that are very hard to back away from. I'm also going to say, and I know this is incredibly naive, I mean, athletics were a huge part of my life and my family, and, you know, I had good opportunities. And, you know, it's not our kids' fault that they choose hockey, right? It's not our kids' fault that they choose football. Right? But families are not making decisions at 5 years old about picking the least expensive sport and costing that out and the return on investment possibilities, right? That's not how it works. And we don't talk about how much it costs our individual students to program for them. We don't sit here and have a conversation around making reductions or raising fees on our kids in some way. We run a comprehensive program. That's what we do. And this is my struggle with this, is that and believe me, I know the numbers, we're with it all the time, and I'm not trying to be obstinate or be too philosophical with this, but I think fundamentally we've got to decide whether we're going to run a comprehensive athletics program or not, right? I mean, we can't nibble around the edges of this forever. So we either have to figure out, are we comfortable really charging that much more for kids who have their pathway with their families, their talent, their interests, their passion has led them to hockey, or not. And I think, we don't charge kids extra for advanced placement courses in terms of really, truly, if they took the test, it's one thing, but there's so many things that we do that we're not looking for the dollar return. And I just would caution you, and I understand the attractiveness of deciding this now, and I know the money is the money and the gap is the gap. I just caution you to if you're going to make this tier decision, you are setting it up for something that, one, you haven't had a community-wide conversation about, and two, you're going to be stuck with in some way, shape, or form. You're either going to have to really have a whole conversation about how, okay, we thought that was a good idea last year, but now we're going to back out of it. Right? Because whether we do an override or not, whether that passes or not, whatever you do right now is going to be something you're going to have a conversation about. So, and I'm not suggesting this is easy or that there's a right answer. I think we are vulnerable with where we land economically with our athletics program, and I think we've got to really think through how we might deal with that, from potentially asking town meeting for additional funding or something. But I'm a little nervous. I am quite concerned about making a fundamental shift in how we charge right now. And I understand all the rationale for doing it, but I felt like I had to say that just because I want you to be clear about, I think it's bigger than just how we solve this gap. That's it.
Yeah, I kind of agree with that. I think, I like option one with a lower cap, closer to your 3. On option 2, though, the people in the higher priced things are more disadvantaged. And so in my mind, I'm like, oh, maybe they could have a lower cap and the rest. But then you're getting the complexity part is what gets me. And Dr. Hackett, what you were saying, also, maintaining not just the simplicity of the first one, but the status quo, that right now we're on a flat rate. We haven't raised it. Really, it shouldn't be 400 right now. It probably should be 500 had we been keeping pace. And so the jump is bigger than it normally would be. But I think if we're going to really dig into this, and I think there's a lot to dig into about how we approach this. And by the way, if we had all the data in front of us right now, I think this would still be a really hard question to deal with. But we don't even have the data. So I lean in the direction of option 1 because it's a continuation of what we're doing now. It's at a higher level, but it's a continuation. It's the status quo, and that's the same thing. That's simplicity was the other point, and just because it gets really complicated when you get over here, that's at least where I am right now. I won't say that I'm. As always, I'm still open as we talk through this, and I hear from everyone else around the table, as it should be. But but I think getting the family cap down, because that's one of the things we heard so much at the public comment the other night was, just $6,000 or whatever the numbers were. It adds up really quickly, and so I think if we could. And I get the inequity if you're running track or something else, which is why we need to fix this longer term. I do think a longer term solution probably is, but also looking at equity across all of our activities. Are we providing busing? If we've had public comment about the arts and science Olympiads and things like that, where people are driving on their own, whereas other schools have buses of people coming. So there's a whole big conversation to have.
Our
this.
activities budget is about $80,000 a year. Athletics is $1.4 million.
Exactly.
So there's a huge disparity.
Yeah, but in a lot of these the costs aren't as high. But on things like transportation, anyway, we don't need to go there. That's part of the bigger nut that has to be broken open.
So in the interest of time, because we're actually at 7:23, I think we should take a motion on this and then we can discuss it. It sounds like there might be a motion. Spill and I say I'm not 100% sure where you're landing, but it sounds like there might be a motion.
I'd be happy to make a motion.
Okay.
I'd like to make a motion to adopt option 1 for FY27 for the athletics program with a family cap of up to, with a family cap of 3 activities.
Is there a second?
I'll second that, but I do have a question.
Yes.
Yeah.
So we have Ms. Minyarji, motion, Ms. Bolanese, second. Time for discussion.
I guess I was wondering about a 4-sport cap if we pursued option 1.
So I'd be happy to second her motion if you want, because I like,
Second
I
that.
prefer the 3. That would
I
be.
just wanted to have a discussion about it.
Yeah, that would be, yeah, okay. We can discuss
I
it, but that would
think
be
let's
a
compare
different
the
amendment to
numbers.
the.
Yeah.
I like the idea of the 3, knowing that we still have options to explore closing the deficit. And I think it helps with the biggest risk to all of this, which is participation.
Yep.
No one around this table wants to reduce opportunities for our students. We do not want to do that. The participation rate will be impacted by the family cap.
Mr. Mayor, I'm just curious, do we have a sense of how many people play fewer, their family has fewer than 3 or fewer sports? Because all those people will be impacted by the higher rate. To your
On
attrition.
my head, I know it. Yeah, it's larger, and then it tapers off. I think usually after that 4 cap, it's less.
Okay.
I don't think.
And I think that with a 3, it kind of softens the blow of this year because it was a big jump. Again, if we were incrementally increasing fees steadily over the last 6 years, which maybe we could have or could not have done, that's one thing. But right now, we're doing about a 50% plus hike. That at least a cap of 3 helps soften the blow for this year, knowing it's a transition year, right? Because we're going to have, the working group and the new AD to put together a different fee structure going forward.
And if we do have the attrition, the 5% attrition, and we do end up with a deficit of 117,000, roughly. And maybe you answered this earlier. I think we had talked about some adjustments in transportation and elsewhere. Will
And
that
also
still help us?
fundraising and sponsorships and advertising and
I think you have to
Policy
accept.
adjustments to get
Yeah,
that.
all of that, and I think in the end, you've got to accept as a committee that we might be eating a bigger portion of the budget
I think-
that we want to or are trying to plan around. I mean, that's
I would
just
be
gonna
happy to go
the
in front of
reality.
town meeting and
that's
ask for
right.
that.
And I think those kinds
before
of
we would do
options
that.
are on the table.
Can I also,
I'm fine with 3. then.
yeah, and I also want to note that 3 times 675 is 2,025, and the current cap is 1,450. So it's $575 more than the current cap, even at 3. If we go up to.
But it's a 28% increase in the family cap relative to a more than 50% increase in the per sport fee. So that's proportional. It's not proportional in that regard.
Right, right.
So I will just say, because I haven't said a whole bunch, I would not vote in support of that proposal personally. And it's fine. It feels like we've kind of are going to get to the vote. But my concern is our largest sports by enrollment based on the data from the state organization are all track. And we have over 100 students in most of our track seasons. And that has a massive impact in the total amount of revenue that we raise. I think the 5% participation drop with a $200 per student per enrollment in a sport is giant. And I think especially for those who are in a third sport or, a sort of multiple children in the household that, are not going to be up to the family cap. So I'm really, obviously 3, I think it might be a little more impactful, but I think we're going to have a lot of sort of second and third sports fall off. And I think we're going to lose revenue from that. And I think we're going to end up with a bigger deficit than we're modeling. And that's my concern. So personally, I just, again, it comes back to economics. How do we predict behavior? Elastic versus inelastic demand.
We need
How
that
do
data
we
to do
predict
that.
consumer behavior? We don't. So I think, in many ways, I guess, I can see we have to put a pin in it somewhere, but I personally would not vote in favor of that, which is fine. It sounds like there is a majority in the committee, and so I'm happy to move to the vote. But I just wanted to say that.
Well, and I expect there probably will be attrition, and actually I'm concerned about that as well, because we're going from the prior fee. Was the prior fee 400? 400?
Yep.
Yeah. But what we're talking about between these two options is just the $75 difference. between 600 and 675.
Yep.
So the 275 sounds like a lot, and that 200 piece of it, I think, is going to cause a bunch of attrition. The 75 will cause some too, but the majority of it is because of the base increase, and so that's part of why, in my mind, I feel like $75 to just get us through a bridge year.
I mean,
I don't love it, but
Yeah, I will just
Well,
say,
I don't think there's a great answer.
there's not a great answer.
There
And that's
isn't,
why
no.
I'm, I mean, for my own sake, I mean, it's just, I was never a, top flight athlete. I, participated, and it was something that was great for my mental health and being able to, get out there and do something with a team. But I maybe that's part of what's influencing my own perspective is, I mostly did it not because I was an excellent athlete, but because there were mental, social benefits to doing that, being part of something. So I'm just afraid that for certain students for whom that's the case, the students that come on and actually, make the team better, make it stronger, make it larger because of the fact that it's their second or third sport, and sort of, then create more of a sense of community around that, it's going to disappear. So I guess that's my own lens. But I think we're ready to move to the vote. So let us vote on the adoption of, this is confusing because we're currently on this slide, which says Model B and
Option
Model B.
one with a
So
family
it's
cap of 3.
Option one with a family cap of 3, and I'm happy to take a roll call vote in case, because I sense there's going to be not a unanimous vote. So I'll start with Mr. Belair.
No.
Mr. Hopcroft?
yes.
Ms. Bolanese?
Yes.
Ms. Banyarji?
Yes.
And the chair votes no, so we are 3-2 in favor of adopting option 1 with a cap of 3 sports. So thank you all.
And with the understanding that there will be the working group
Yes.
for the next year,
Yeah, exactly.
delving into this.
Exactly. All right.
Just to note, there is some items as a first read about procurement and contracts, but then we'll have them at your next meeting for consideration of approval. But it's in your
And
binder. It's
are there any other FY27 budget updates?
I think that was it. We've covered it.
We don't
Covered
have
everything
enough
else
money
tonight. So
for athletics.
Okay. We don't have enough money in general
Yep.
for the 3 teachers that we have to hire back and
Correct.
find money for.
Yep.
Yeah. Okay, great. So we are set on item number 6, which is the budget subcommittee update. I believe that we actually have people here for item 8, the consideration of the WCCP applications. And so given the fact that item 7, the consideration of capital project priorities, is a solely committee-related thing, unless Mr. Marin and Dr. Hackett, there was a reason you thought to sort of pull that ahead.
no, it's fine.
Oh.
Okay, so just to be respectful of folks' time, maybe we should move on to item 8, the consideration of the WCCP applications. So is there anyone here to speak with us regarding the Tri-Community Greenway improvement? No, seeing no one. So do we want to, I'm not exactly sure.
Yes, so this is,
you're
was
more-
submitted by the Walk and Roll group to WCCP. And the reason why it's here at the school committee is because it impacts Morocco and the bike path that's by Morocco. So it's, the Morocco community is supportive of it, and it would be, make that space safer for our students. So I'd like the committee to consider supporting the Tri-Community Greenway Improvement Project that was submitted by Walk and Roll. It
Is
was
there-
emailed to the committee by
Yeah,
Roger Wilson.
And are we supporting all of the Tri-Community Greenway improvements, or is it just the Morocco
Just the
specific?
part that impacts Morocco.
Yeah.
I mean, there's 2 different ways to look at this, right? So we have a role in terms of our oversight of that one particular part of the project. And so I think we can kind of do 2 things. One of them is we could co-sponsor or offer to co-sponsor. I think it's too late to officially do so. That whole application, or we could say that we're willing to provide a letter that says we're okay with the part of the application that specifically impacts one of our school buildings. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Because it's sort of I think with this one, it's an unusual thing because it's not 100% to
Right.
benefit our schools.
Right.
It just has an impact across our property.
Yep.
A small part of it, yeah.
What is their ask? Their ask is whether we will support this?
I think it's just to, because we need to, one of the things that the WCCP needs to have is verification if it impacts any property that's owned by the town the entity that has care and control in the town needs to indicate that it's okay,
Yeah.
that they're okay with that particular. And in this case, it's not 100%, like with the Lincoln shade structure, which we already dealt with, which was 100% to benefit our school. This is just, it happens to have an incidental crossing of our school property.
Yeah.
I'm very supportive.
So would you, I think, actually, since you're our sort of capital lead / guru, I would love for you
Oh,
to
goodness.
make a motion if it's possible.
Yeah. So how, Andrew, would we show support for similar to what we did for Lincoln Shade?
Yes,
Well-
yeah, if you took a vote of support, and then I'll summarize it and send a letter to WCCP.
But I think we specifically, just to be clear, I think we specifically need to say that we are okay with the part that impacts
Morocco.
the Morocco. And I personally think let's just limit it to that, because
Right, because we don't know if they're building a water slide on the other end of it or
Correct.
something that we don't want to be a
Just-
part of. Right.
So I think just for, in my own view, just for how it impacts Morocco, we are okay with
Right.
that.
Okay, so I'd like to make a motion to support the Tri-Community Greenway Improvements Project application to WCCP for the portion that impacts the Morocco Elementary School.
Second.
All right, so motion made by Ms. Minyarji, seconded by Ms. Bolanese. Is there any discussion?
I would just say that I would also be happy to give the chair or Mr. Maron the authority to adjust this as needed within the spirit of what we're saying here.
Is that a friendly amendment from the original motion?
Sure, yes.
Okay.
Just in the event that you speak to the folks and they need something slightly different.
Yeah.
But yes, absolutely.
Is our seconder okay with that as well?
Second.
Okay, great. All right, so any other discussion? All right, all in favor of the motion as presented?
Aye.
That's 5-0, unanimous. Thank you very much. And good luck to our Tri-Community Greenway Improvement Walk, Bike, Roll team.
Walk and roll,
Walk
yeah.
and roll team.
name.
And hopefully it improves our Morocco property. Is there anyone here to speak about the carriage house from the Historical Society? I see Ms. Gavoni.
Electra, yeah.
No,
No, yeah.
you need to, because of WinCam, you need to come up to the mic so that you can be recorded.
We don't make it easy.
Right. So
Do you pull up a chair?
you want to roll that
Sir,
over?
Iden, feel free to grab that chair and roll it on over.
Yeah, because otherwise the YouTube won't be able to pick up your,
Okay.
WinCam won't be able to pick up your.
Yeah. All right, and so we are here this evening, similarly to look for a letter of support for our application for a CPA grant award. And it is about the carriage house. I believe everyone did get a copy of what our proposal is for that grant. It is around, oh, there's Bill. It is around.
Bill, you can
seeing-
join them.
Bill, feel free to come up.
There's a chair right here. You guys could probably slide that table up a little bit. There's a chair right here. You can-
I'm not sure how sensitive these mics are. You think that will cover the three of us?
You can move it around.
Okay, okay. Okay. So it is about securing the building. It is about adding some lighting. It's also about seeing that the building deterioration is halted by doing some work on the actual structure, particularly focused on the roof. And while all that's going on, continuing our work to identify all the town support for an alternative use, which right now, the leading thing that we hear from everyone who we talk to is about event space, performance space, community space. And so this is just an initial foray at really focused on stopping the deterioration. So let me stop. Bill, is there anything you'd like to add? Bill is chairing us.
I think you got it elected.
Okay.
Any other, Mr. Iden, did you?
We have, I could just say what we have done so far is just go and, if you've been up there, clear out brush and growth and vines and everything over the place. Put up with permission, we put up a fence around it with locks on it. And just yesterday, yesterday we put up some motion detecting security lights there so that if there is any intrusion beyond that fence, we haven't tested them, but hopefully those lights will come on. And we also made sure they're focused down so that we don't annoy the neighbors. But again, just some preliminary stuff to kind of secure the property and make it obvious that there's some interest in it and interest in preserving it.
Right. I will open it, unless there's other things, I will open it up to the committee for any questions.
No question.
Don't all talk at once.
I have a couple of questions, but I'd like to.
I have comments.
So I'm looking at the application, and it says restoring building envelope. So you're asking for $150,000, correct?
220, we changed that.
Oh, okay, so what is it?
You're looking at maybe the preliminary
Yeah.
application, the second one was a higher number.
Okay,
It's actually, the final one had 225.
so the 225 gets what?
225 would probably get us at least the roof and some level of the building envelope improved. We've gotten some quotes for the roof that are actually not that high. So we're working it, so it's an
Yeah.
ongoing thing. What we see happening is that we want to bootstrap as we're raising money, doing things to protect the building.
Oh, can you pause?
culminating-
Sorry, I just realized you don't have a mic. So
Oh,
Mr.
Tom, can you
Hopcroft,
give him
if you
your
could
mic?
Pass over.
Sorry.
Thank you.
Thanks.
So what we were trying to do is to bootstrap the building so people see progress on it as we raise money. The idea would be that if we get this CPA money, that we would do at least the roof, if not more, of the building envelope with that money starting in December and January, when the money would be available. And that would show people some progress. We'd also like to start cleaning the place out so that people can start imagining what it would be like as you get in there, so clean it up initially, eventually take down any of the added walls that were not original, so that people can see the space, and then continue to raise money to actually redo that space into a program space.
So a couple more questions.
Sure.
At our last public meeting where we met, you said you've raised $300,000 to begin this work. Wasn't it about 300,000 that was said at our, wasn't there?
I believe, I don't know if, Michelle, you want to say something about that?
We have verbal commitments of more than 300,000, but as a fundraiser.
Sorry, pause. We can't, if
Yeah.
you're
You
going to
need a
speak,
mic.
you
Can
need
you
to come
hand
up
her-
to the
yeah.
table.
Only because then the cameras
We're
can't
here.
pick you up. Yeah. Can
I'm
you
a
get her-
professional fundraiser, but usually I do it for politicians. This is way more fun. In fundraising, as I'm sure you all know, it's easy to raise money for a candidate who people think is going to win. This is very similar. It's a lot easier for me to raise money from people. Right now, I have a lot of verbal commitments, but people keep saying, well, let me know how it goes with school committee. Like, let me know how it goes. So passing this hurdle and moving forward would make it a lot easier to say to those verbals, like, let's start. Let's write those checks. Like, we're ready to rock and roll. But right now, we're at this impasse. And I think that a message from school committee that matched what town meeting had said, that, we don't want to tear this down. We're ready to try to let the Historic Society raise money privately would make my job a lot easier. Happy to answer any questions on that. Thank you.
So I think that's where my confusion is that we're raising the money privately, but we're going to use public funds to do so?
No, I think it's two
And I
separate.
think, and I think that this is a good conversation to also have with TMMA, because I think a lot of town meeting members were confused about that, too.
Yeah, and I think the discussion here is, what is the purpose of Community Preservation Act? What is the purpose of the town budget? It's both the annual budget and the capital planning piece of it. And I think, obviously, the carriage house is exactly the type of project that CPA was intended for, because it basically is something that couldn't make it to the top of the capital plan, and because there's not a municipal or school use involved this time, probably never would. But it is something to preserve the community and pieces there. So it's an appropriate part for a Community Preservation Act. When we were talking at town meeting, we were talking about the town budget. So, the demolition proposal was coming out of capital funds that would otherwise be applied to, this building, other buildings in town that are for the things the town is on the hook for delivering for its residents. I think that, personally, I supported the override, and I think the main thing we have to do is to get the bloody override passed so that we have more money going into capital so that we can get the work done that needs to get done. But I think, there is a difference between the things that are necessary for the town to execute its legally required programs in, capital there, and CPA, which was always intended as, let's find a mechanism for funding the things that would be good for the town, but that are never going to make it to the top of the capital planning list.
Yeah, and I agree. And I mean, you can easily use 100% of the CPA funds on Town Hall, our largest and most prized historic asset.
Not legally.
But I know, but I'm just saying, like, achieving that 10% is very easy in this town, right? We have plenty of historic assets, and our biggest one is Town Hall, that is in desperate need of $20 million in repair.
Yeah, and I guess, and this is a personal opinion.
Yeah.
I would think that the intent of Community Preservation Act is for things that otherwise wouldn't get done. So if you want to talk about Town Hall, fixing the bell tower, well, we don't need the bell tower to run the town. We need the rest of the building. But fixing the bell tower because of its historic significance, I think it would be the kind of thing that you would use this for. When we did Lincoln School, we put up the balustrade. Okay, that was something that was not necessary to teach kids, but it's something that made that historic building fit into the town and keep its space. So I think, this is a piece here, but I will say, when we talked at town meeting, we were talking about the town annual budget. CPA we see as something that is something that we should be using for this, as we are currently executing a project to fix the columns in the Sanborn House with CPA money.
I mean, I can only, we should really be focusing on the carriage house.
Yeah.
But for myself, as a town meeting member, and also as a voter, I voted for the CPA because it would help with our capital backlog. And I know a lot of people do share that sentiment, but we're focusing on the carriage house and
Yeah.
not CPA as in general. If other members, I don't want to dominate the conversation. Sorry, go for it, Tom.
Yeah, so, I guess I wanted to go back, this is less questions, more commentary, but if we went back in time, we had voted the way we voted because we had no viable path moving forward at the time, and we felt like no one had come forward. And I remember having difficulty at the time making that vote, but I think it was Member Bergstrom who had said, well, this vote will only trigger a one-year demo delay, which will be, the signal to the town that we're serious and that people ought to come forward if there's any way to save the building. Because I think we had, if I recall the meeting, pretty firm consensus that we all would like to preserve it, but we just don't see a path forward to preserve it, and we couldn't justify spending more money on a building that had no future to it. And so we voted, and it triggered the demo delay. And though it was later than we would love, someone came forward, and so, and then town meeting further expressed a strong view that we preserve the building, which I think is consistent with the view that we had. I do agree that I think the CPA was designed for this purpose. I recall in the vote for it, it was specifically said that it was for things that wouldn't otherwise get funded. That there's so much stuff, there's so many urgent things that we're trying to do, that there's all this stuff that gets pushed aside, like our green space, like our historical things, et cetera. And so, that was my recollection on that. And so I guess my sense is whether the CPA ought to fund this or not is, to me, a CPA decision and not a school committee decision. And really for us, I feel our intent was that we ought to try to preserve this if we can, and we did the demo delay. We had someone come forward, and we ought to give it every possible chance to be successful. And I'm hearing two things here. One being the CPA money itself, which I thought was a strong argument. It's designed for this purpose. It's going to help really move this project forward and give it the best chance it can, because we want to give it the best chance. And then we just heard that it also will trigger more private dollars, which I hadn't thought about before, but that makes a lot of sense from my experience with trying to raise money as well. The biggest concerns, I think, that I'd heard around our table had been around safety issues with leaving it deteriorating as it is. And it sounds like those have been largely mitigated with the fencing and lighting and locks and things like that, which I hope is actually...
There's more to be done.
and there's always more to be done. And then the continuing deterioration, and it looks like the order of operations here is to stop the deterioration first. And that I think I read in here that you'd had people look at it. I haven't been in it in 3 or 4 years, but when I was there with Mr. Nixon, it looked structurally sound then, and I've heard from somewhere here I read that it still seems to be in a structurally sound condition. So, in terms of just being supportive of a process and giving you guys the best chance to move forward, I think it makes sense to do that. I don't know why I don't have a reason personally that I would vote against moving it forward, because whether it's really CPA eligible is up to CPA, not to me. And I would hope that they would actually find it appropriate. It looks appropriate.
They have, and which is why we were asked to submit a final.
Yeah. So I would hate to just be to be throwing up a roadblock for this when we really were trying to be, doing everything we could to give it every chance we could with the demo delay, to come in. Can anyone save this building? I mean, we spent years trying to do that. And,
Yeah.
Yeah. So anyway, I can
Just
stop there.
make one comment, if that's okay. The WCCP did not receive any applications for CPA funds for town hall. So I just wanted to point that out. We're not competing against the town hall for those funds. And I just have to say, as a long-term 16-year, I think, historic commission member and preservationist, we're not competing against town hall. We fully support town hall. Many of us are on town meeting and have always voted to support town hall. This is just to help save another historic asset in town that can hopefully be used by many people. Maybe you'll have a school committee meeting there one day. I mean, I think that this helps us move this project forward, and it helps us. We have offers of architects in town, architects from Boston, people who are willing to donate their time to help us, and that it just moving this forward helps move that whole process forward. Thank you.
Mr. Belair?
Yeah, I think.
Like you're about ready to.
Yeah, I don't have a question though. So if other people have a question, I have a comment.
Do you have any questions, Ms. Belenese?
Not at the moment.
Okay.
Okay.
Feel free to.
I think when thinking about the history of how we've gotten to this point, I don't have the full chronology of the timeline. I know it's been a decades plus long process to where we are now with regards to the carriage house. But I think town meeting really said two things with regard to this. The first was that nobody is satisfied with the current state of the building, whether you're concerned about safety or you want to improve it, demolish it. I think there is a responsibility for the community to think about what the path forward is to act in some way to either, to move forward with the building. And the second is that they wanted to see if it was possible to try and save it. And it's, I think, really great to see a group of people coming together to mobilize around this issue. And in the spirit of the Community Preservation Act, a project that is important to members of the community coming forward, I think is really good to see. And I think regardless of what I might think as an individual about like the merits of this project, or I think relative to the other Community Preservation Act applications that we've supported, I would support those above this one. But like Mr. Hopcroft said, this is a decision for the WCCP to consider holistically because they have more context around the other projects, the applications coming through, other things that might be on the horizon in future years. So I think that that's important for us to just play a role of being, the question we're asking isn't like, is this a good use of CPA funds, but would we support a project like this happening on our property, which I think is a different question. And I also think if it turns out that this isn't a viable plan forward and there is a need to, years later, demolish the structure, I don't think we need to have a fair process from the school committee's perspective that we've given opportunities to folks from the community to organize and to build this, as opposed, if we shut you down now and say, nope, you can't build it, we put up roadblocks. I think that doesn't give us any credibility to go in front of town meeting and say we've had fair processes, it's not possible, let's put in for the demolition again. So I think procedurally, in the spirit of the purpose of the CPA, you guys organizing and needing to get there for them to consider, and also for our own credibility's sake, that we can, say that, look, we've tried every option, this is another one. I think we should move this forward. I know that this has come up in the past, but I think with the community organizers from Save Our Carriage House here tonight, I think we have a responsibility to think about how this consequence will resonate at town meeting in future years as well.
But what is the project? What is the application for?
The application is for primarily the roof.
So Chris Nixon stood up in front of town meeting saying the roof is a $1.5 million project.
We have a...
Based on 2022 numbers, which...
I mean, my house is around this size. It's not a $1.5 million. We all have those.
All I can say
It's
is
a different project.
we actually have a bid that is less than 10% of that. So whether those are valid, whether that's everything that needs to be done, it's still the early days. So, I mean, I think the point being is that we see in what we have put in our thing is a total project cost for a single floor use of the building in the $1.5 to $2.5 million range. And, there was a lot of stuff in the latest proposal for using it for the central office, including demolishing a portion of the back of the building and building a new portion on it, and a whole ton of stuff there. So I think, we have to take the costs and whatever with a grain of salt. What are things there? I happen to think the numbers that we came up with here before we had actually gotten this much lower bid are probably in the right ballpark. But primarily, I think what this money will go for is the roof. But the point is we're going to be building a stream of work to be done, and we're going to be getting through it as fast as we can as funding becomes available.
So I think it's the stream of work that I'm concerned about, because it's in the middle of a functioning elementary school. So do we have to relocate the students to Parkhurst at some point? Is it going to be disruptive to school operations? Is there a 9-week execution plan so it can happen just over the summer? Where are the trucks going to be stored? You know what I mean? It's not like it's just sitting in a field by itself.
Can I weigh in also? I think, part of it, for us, I think our question is just, are we supportive of an attempt to save the building that doesn't go beyond that? And specifics of what they do is really within the scope of what they do.
Well, I think
CCP decides.
I think the specifics are important, because do we want to move the students out of Ambrose to Parkhurst to?
So I would
Or
say, I don't think there's any scenario that, well, that couldn't happen without them coming back to the school committee. And so the school committee would have to decide whether that's something that we wanted to happen. I can't speak for them, but I don't imagine any scenario where they would do that. And I think to the extent.
But will it, like, construction go on during the school year?
Well, we can work that out with them, I'm sure. But the first question is, is this project
Is it
even
going to be a
viable?
hard hat area for like years to come?
No.
I mean, we have.
Because it'll be done in 9 weeks.
Well, but let's be honest, we have been doing work at the Sanborn House in the same area with construction. Excuse me.
It's our 20th anniversary this year.
Congratulations.
Yeah, but basically, we have contractors who replaced the chimneys in the Sanborn House, redid them. We have people coming in to do work like that. We will work around it. We've worked around and not interfered with the school. And we see the same thing happening with that piece there. It's not going to be huge crews of people because it's not that big a building.
Great. I mean, I'm supportive of doing something with the carriage house. I'm supportive of saving the structure so long as it's not disruptive to the students, right? And it's done in 9 weeks, and it's privately funded.
And I would echo that. I'm supportive of saving the building. I don't know what the timeline, that seems perhaps unrealistic, but here the question is really just, do we support them getting an application for the CCP funding? So I forgot what the other point was. I did want to mention, by the way, that the school committee's proposal for the carriage house also involved an elevator, which is quite expensive.
Yes. One word.
I had a question, and it was mainly around the motion that was emailed to us from Mr. Roeder, because there was a part of it that was about supporting the Historical Society's application for the carriage house. But there's also a portion about temporarily granting the Historical Society permission to access and have work done on the carriage house. And then it lists off a few bullet points for what the Historical Society can request. And is that still what the motion is expected to be? And does the school committee want to give blanket access, or is it something where it would be like on a case-by-case as things arise? That it would come back to us?
I try to reserve my comments until the end as chair, but if it's okay, Ms. Bolognese,
Yeah, go ahead.
I'd
I
like
just
to.
had a question.
So, yeah, no, and I share your question. So my biggest challenge with this is that I broadly support what Mr. Hopcroft and Mr. Belair have said. I feel like we're in a situation here where the school committee currently has care and control of the property, right? Obviously, I think I personally want to be as collaborative as we possibly can, but unfortunately, I haven't seen sort of, aside from an application that we found out after it was submitted, right? I haven't seen a clear vision of what sort of two things look like for this project. One of them is, what does the Historical Society expect to ask for from the school committee in terms of care and control of the property? And at what point is that ask going to be made, right? Because we would have to make a decision like the Sanborn House to potentially move care and control of this property. So my understanding is the way it would work is we'd have to move it back to the town, and then the town would have to move it to the Historical Society. And at what point would that happen? And we haven't had that conversation yet.
Correct.
Correct.
So let me just, I think the bolognese's thing to Ms. Bolognese's point is, like, what is the plan? What is the vision for how the property would be used, right? Because I think the biggest challenge that we've had is that this is so proximate to the Ambrose School. And so not every use would necessarily be aligned with the things that I think the school committee membership would envision. And so I think we have to be very careful and probably undertake a sort of community conversation process involving the parents at the Ambrose School, as well as folks in the community surrounding, if there's a sort of change in purpose from what the situation is right now. And the current situation is all the Historical Society activity is over at Sanborn, bless you, Mr. Belair. And then there's this property that's in a dilapidated state that's much closer to Ambrose. And so for me, while I am supportive and I don't want to be the person who stands between a successful application and an unsuccessful application, it does actually feel like this is a cart before the horse situation, because I haven't seen either of those two things, right? And to Ms. Bolognesi's point, looking at what Mr. Roeder put in email, as well as some of the public comments we've received by email, I'm just not 100% sure. I'm not sure beyond, I'll just read one thing that Ms. Broderick actually sent in, which was, the restoration, the Historical Society has committed to uses of the renovated carriage house that would not interfere with school times and parking needs. There are large spans of time when school is not in session, summer vacations, holidays, after 4 p.m. on weekdays, weekends, that the building could be put to good use. We have a responsibility to our students to make sure that those uses are safe, and it doesn't, I haven't seen anything, exclusive of the application that's gone in, Mr. Roeder's email, Ms. Broderick's email. Like, it's not really clear to me what the potential use, the proposed use is. And that is where I'm getting stuck. And I understand, Ms. McCarthy, the need to bootstrap the fundraising and whatever, but at the same time, I think we need to be confident that if we are going to allow a building that we have care and control over that's immediately adjacent to one of our schools, that, to Ms. Minyarji's point, the construction work is safe for our students and families, but also that, the potential use downstream of a successful funding campaign is also kosher with what the school committee would envision for the use of that structure so close to one of our active elementary schools. Mr. Hopper. I don't know.
I share all those concerns.
Sorry.
Except I feel that those are risks on their side, because if they're selling the place to donors and making, I don't want to say assurances, but if they're saying you can use it in this way, knowing that they need to get approval from the school department, and we've talked at many of our meetings, we haven't voted anything, but those are risks if they make commitments to donors and then can't deliver on them. And so those are uncertainties that they'll want to work out with us over time. But at this point, I think, can they get the CPA funding to take the next step? And then along the way, certainly figuring out the uses. I will say also, when I've been over at the Sanborn House for other functions, I've parked right up by sometimes even past the carriage house. And so there is use happening at the Sanborn House that extends all up and around the carriage house in terms of the parking, which is mostly, I think, how the carriage house would be used too, is that you'd either be in the carriage house or you'd be parking by the carriage house or walking to the Sanborn House. So, but I do think those are very valid things that they will have to figure out, working with the school committee, around the uses. And we've talked about a lot of different uses that could be.
And it's not that uncommon to what goes on today. There's a multi-pronged set of activities going on, some of which is active dialogue in the community to talk about usage. And I would say at least 95+% of what we're hearing in all corners is event space, performance space, meeting space, community space. Very similar to how the Sanborn House is used today. Now, and in all our discussions, we're starting to sort of formulate that that's going to be the story. Now, because I know you want to see a much more complete plan, that's a part of a bit of our work ahead. This particular thing in front of us is, how can we start to stabilize a building that's deteriorating? And that's not going to be our only focus, because we're also going to be coming up with the bigger plan of how do we design that first floor. So there's some moving pieces here, but I hope you have some comfort. And so we appreciate the need for this to be a safe space, that we are on a campus with a school, And we're very respectful of that today, and I don't see that changing at all.
So my question was more, I think, the first part of what you were talking about, which was in Mr. Roeder's email, where the motion would include something about the school committee temporarily grants the Winchester Historical Society permission to access and have work done on the Sanborn Carriage House. And I was asking, is that just like some sort of blanket permission that we would give? Because I guess that makes me a little bit nervous.
Yeah, does
But
everyone
it
have a Corey
entails,
form?
Like coming, if there's a process where it means coming to, like Mr. Marin, I know that you had worked with the Historical Society on putting up the security fence and presumably on the motion detector cameras.
Right.
Or motion detector.
Yes.
So if there's a process where it comes through you,
Yeah.
then,
Yeah, we want that, and we have concerns for, there's asbestos in there and proper abatement. If we're doing things around here too.
yes.
So,
Absolutely.
yeah, we want to have it run through our office and then facilities as well, as it happens.
DPW.
And that was the intention of that motion, okay? The point being is that, as Mr. Matthews said, the end game here, if everything goes well, is that somehow we're going to end up with a lease on the carriage house. It may be through the select board, much like the process was with the Sanborn house. But that's something that has to be set up and worked through, and we have Doug Marmon, who is actually going to be working that issue there. The portion of the motion was so that we could start doing stabilization work now. And we've kind of
Which
done
sounds like
that
you have started,
informally.
yeah.
We've kind of done that informally with the fence and a little bit of lighting and things like that, cleaning it up a bit, and worked through Andrew to do that. But I mean, we've just wanted to get some kind of a formal way of doing that. And I think the motion also does talk about, working through somebody at the business office or whatever, plus the regular things that you all expect for when we have people working on the school property, which is Corey checks during the day, indemnity, all those types of things.
I guess I'd just like to make sure that it's definitely running through a process if we were to agree with this, and that it includes the people who need to be assisting with that.
Yep,
So,
that's good.
but otherwise, I guess, sorry.
No, I'm sure you can appreciate, right? I mean, there are children there, and I know you have to, right? I'm not going to tell you anything you don't either experience or have or know. And, as I sit here, the idea of just giving up control of that for the school department is a challenge, I think, for all of us as we've thought about, we saw this, we hoped this was going to go in a different direction, that I would be in my suite on the left-hand side. It was so well designed. I was looking forward to it. But clearly, there's such a vested interest in that property. And I think that it's going to be super important. And whatever the process is, I think this committee has to really hear it. And I think they have to understand it. And I think they have to bless it because, the two of us can do whatever. I mean, just in terms of just trying to keep things moving. But to the point around what is the ultimate vision for this, and I appreciate what you're saying, and we'd love to have more meeting space. I think it would be great. But, it is also, is it going to be used during the day? What's the agreement going to look like? And I know it's way in the weeds, right? But you also have to figure out what kind of revenue is that place going to generate, right? What's the model that you see? And if you are, the sooner I think we can have, or you can share that. And I know it's early, but like if you're thinking it's going to be 7 days a week, 24/7, and we're going to have disco parties going on, which would be awesome. But then I think, that's a conversation that they need to hear. They can't just sign off on something that's so close to the building without really understanding. And I think having some level of control and reassurance around what the plan's going to be. And that's all. I mean, that's all I would say. I'm not, It's,
And there are very specific uses, I thought, there were like four
yes.
targeted uses.
Well, there are ones in our control.
No, so if you took a look at the application for the Community Preservation Act, we saw it as a meeting, performance, and, general community space. Those are probably the key things there. We also see it as an adjunct to things already being done at the Sanborn House. So, for example, there was a wedding over the past weekend where they spent something like $10,000 or $15,000 to put up a tent. If they could have had the space that was in that, the space would probably be roughly here to the posts back there in wide. This is the kind of a big space that you would be able to fit in the original footprint of the carriage house. For doing that. We're also very much looking at, and we're talking to different arts organizations in town and whatever, is there a way we can make this something that's affordable as well? And we think that there's ways we can reduce the cost of actually renting it out from what we do at the Sanborn House, where we don't have that big a space, to make it more affordable for people as well, if we design it the right way. But that's actually work that's going on right now, is talking to organizations, finding out where the price point is.
But there's going to be an expectation around that, right? And that's my point.
Yeah.
There has to be conversation ongoing about what when is it going to be used? What are the parameters around traffic? Who gets priority in using the space? I mean, all those kinds of things. Going and not knowing any of that, I'm uncomfortable with it, and I understand you are where we are, and I'm not suggesting that you would have that information right now, but I just think it's going to be super important because you're starting to build out a revenue model, right? I mean, you got to make money off this thing. I mean, it can't be right or break even anyway.
Can I just say, we lose money right now in not having this event space.
Agreed.
So that
It's an opportunity cost, right? But
those events would be absolutely keeping, as we are now, the Ambrose school schedule in mind. So
Yeah.
this would be
There's a
weekend
practical
wedding,
reality of the parking. There's no way we would have a large event that would ever compete with what's going on at the school. In fact, we coordinate quite a bit with the Ambrose School to say, are you having something this evening? We have a program. Because sometimes in the
That's true.
evenings, we might.
That's correct.
But we make sure that we're all sort of working together. And
we're
that's
not,
just
but we're
been
not
our
going to be here
practice.
forever, or at least that's
Well,
not my
no.
plan. So I think whatever we do, it has to
been
be really
our
clear
mode.
in writing, and it's going to be understood for years, right? Because
Yeah.
Yeah, but we have all those issues that were in the lease for the Sanborn House.
Yeah.
All those things were discussed, what kind of uses, what timing, how to coordinate parking and everything else are all issues there. Now, it's 20 years, we probably ought to update that and, do it for both of them.
But you're creating a space that has a whole different purpose and use and a more attractive purpose and use potentially for local members of the community, for businesses. I mean,
We see it more as a community space, and what we'd like to be able to do is to make it so that it is affordable for nonprofit organizations in town to use for their programming, which, most places in town, if you go and look at the farm, you go look at the Griffith Museum and whatever else, it's expensive. It's too expensive to try to do some activities there. Even doing it in the schools, because you have to hire a janitor, is too expensive. So when we want to be looking at this and saying, is there a way we can make a space that is both larger than a lot of what's available and more affordable, but for community organizations? It's not for businesses, it's not for discos, it's whatever else. It's primarily for community organizations and, in some cases, citizens who are having a wedding or a private party or something on the weekend.
And I guess I would just say, I think consistent with what Mr. Belair was saying, I mean, this committee had gone one direction in its discussions last summer when we were having our facilities discussions. And I think we were pursuing the demolition of the carriage house very strongly. But I will say, when we got to town meeting very firmly said, although they said several years ago, we do not want a central office here, or the central office, we do not want a $6 million central office. Town meeting also said, we do not want to demolish this building, pretty resoundingly. So,
And I think, like, for us coming back, thinking about the last article that was brought forward around the study committee and how the discussion around that went for, I think, like, the school committee had the perspective of, like, in a year, we want to see enough progress such that we can potentially bring back a demolition permit. And I think if that is the outcome, it's spring 2027 town meeting, and we have a demolition article in front of town meeting, I think it would be the same thing over again of folks being able to say, you know, we weren't given an opportunity, the school committee didn't give us a chance. And I think that that just leaves, you know, the building continues to decay, it's close to students, like, I think we're in the same predicament that we have been. I don't know what how town meeting will be thinking a year from now, but I think that it'll be harder for us to make the case to bring a demolition article forward if we deny this opportunity that could save the carriage house.
I don't think I'm in favor of denying an opportunity to save the carriage house. I think I just need more information.
And I'll say, one last summer when we talked about this, we weren't resoundingly in favor of moving forward. I was very conflicted, and it was Ms. Bergstrom saying, oh, they'll have a whole year for someone to come forward and things. So just that's just for me. I was curious, though, given the conflicting uses of the campus, you know, that during the day, you know, Ambrose students are there, and so the building wouldn't be used for functions during that time. Could Ambrose use the building for functions that the students are using? So that may be an added benefit if it's.
We've had some.
Absolutely.
Yeah, we've had a theater program that reached out that would only want, you know, kids after school to maybe come from Ambrose over there for an after-school theater program, sort of like how the music school used in Winchester. So I think
Our
that
thoughts
is
were
open
that's
that up
exactly what
beyond
would happen.
Ambrose. I think, although I'd hope that it would open, that if it were an after-school program, it would be open to more than just Ambrose, but.
Oh, absolutely.
Oh, no, I mean, the organizations tend to be town-wide.
Yes.
Yeah.
Or even multi-town.
But just when we're thinking about the facility and capacity and things, it may be helpful to have an extra space for the Ambrose campus. The other thing, when you're talking about pricing and community groups, you know, we have a tiered pricing structure, you know, within our spaces. You know, they're free for the schools, and then they're discounted for nonprofits, and it kind of goes up like that. And so it may be just worth checking out how we do that. I think of this, you know, when I envision what the place is like, I think of the Right Lock Farm a lot, and it's, you know, it's not like it's overwhelmed with, you know, people and things, but it's a beautiful space and wonderful when it can be used. Okay. So what's the question we have to resolve tonight? Is it really, I mean, I feel like it's just, can we support this application? There's a lot of other issues that I absolutely agree with around the, how it's going to be used and care and control and all that stuff. But I feel like if those aren't issues that we have to resolve tonight, those are just risks they take on in moving forward, because they have to sell it knowing that those haven't been written in a contract
So
somewhere yet.
I don't see it that way at all,
Okay.
Mr. Hopcroft. I actually think this is my challenge that I'm having with this is that I'm a very process-oriented person, and the process hasn't gone the way I would have envisioned it, right? I was hoping that prior to an application going in that I found out about after the fact, based on essentially someone reaching out to ask me, had you heard about this? And I hadn't, even though we're the care and control entity, right? You know, then Mr. Roeder, I mean, this is not, I hope that this doesn't, I want to divide very clearly my feelings about the carriage house versus what I'm hoping to see from a process standpoint in terms of our care and control responsibility. I am not satisfied with what I've seen from the Historical Commission or Historical Society so far, rather, regarding the plans for this property as a precursor in my mind to actually being able to vote affirmatively to move forward this project. I think there's I think I laid it out earlier. Those are the things that I would sort of broadly expect to see. I haven't seen them yet. I still have more questions than answers.
Yes.
And my concern about this is that we remain the care and control entity, right? We have a responsibility to students at Ambrose and students across the district. But there's a reason why we're the care and control entity. I have to imagine, sort of, I've only been on this board for 2.5 years, 2.25 years, right? I have to imagine that the exact conversation we're having right now is the reason why this is still unresolved after 20 plus years, right? It's a very challenging problem, cart before the horse, whatever. I think, I imagine I'm sort of trying to put myself in the shoes of my predecessors, and I am now kind of understanding, especially after all of what we've gone through following the override and the feedback on both sides of things and making some really difficult decisions and having to lay off teachers. And, it's been a really rough several months. And I think my challenge that I'm having with this is it doesn't feel like the process has unfolded the way I would have hoped to see it unfold, right?
Yes. And just put it in perspective, the vote in town meeting was the first week in May. We had to have an application into CPA by May 15th.
So I guess my question is there, I understand that the WCCP has its own process, right?
Yeah.
But is there a way, I guess what I'm struggling with is this sort of, I understand the cycle was what it was, right? But I would have preferred that the cycle not be an application at that particular time. The other challenge we have with CCP right now is that it's, unlike other communities, this WCCP hasn't fully sort of put together its plan, community preservation plan, right? We're sort of building that plane while we fly, right? Because we sort of started, many other communities, we look at Brookline, which is much longer history with this, they have a community preservation plan that they've actually sort of vetted through their CPA committee. They've decided what their priorities are. The other thing that, I think is somewhat challenging is that communities have different perspectives on which of the 3 elements of the CPA, like the percentage levels of titration for funding allocation, right? So our WCCP hasn't necessarily even gotten to the point where they've fully said to the community or had a full process. And I'm not putting any blame on the WCCP. It's still very early on in our journey with this. So it feels like there's 2 different process things happening at the same time. The first one is the WCCP is still getting its legs under itself. We basically just had a pilot initial funding round, right? And they haven't even fully told us as a community, like what, as a committee, their priorities are for funding. And then on top of that, because of the deadline that exists, you all had to apply before you even had the chance to come and have this conversation with us, which is another layer of process complication that I'm really very much struggling with. And I don't know how to get out of that, right? Because I don't want, to Mr. Belair's point, to Mr. Hopper's, I don't want to be the entity that stands between the preservation of the carriage house and not, right? But at the same time, I feel like there's a lot of process stuff that needs to happen before we can honestly say, hey, we're really in support of this thing that you're trying to do. 100% we've understood all the implications of it. We're trying to make sure that we actually do the right thing here. And the timing just hasn't been in our favor in any of these ways. And so that's where I'm stuck. And, to Dr. Hackett's point, I don't know what the right answer is right now.
What's the next application deadline for the
It's next year.
WCCP? It's next spring?
But so Capital is still putting together their priorities. And I think this year, because we're still kind of in a pilot year, and I'm new to WCCP, so we're still, there are no town projects that have been submitted for WCCP consideration. 0.
Right.
So that process needs to really be cleaned up because there are plenty of historic and outdoor projects that are going to be brought forward. We have 3 that we're going to talk about later tonight that are affect Lincoln and an outdoor space that would be eligible for WCCP. So that's one thing that needs to be considered, and that goes to Tim's point about WCCP figuring out their process. So that's one thing. But I would have liked to do, and I can help out with this, submitting a survey to the Ambrose community, putting together a TMMA Q&A, kind of looking to see, gather that kind of community information first, and to point towards what is the goal here? Is it just to have one giant ballroom where we get out, we blow out the top floor, and that sounds lovely and great. But I think that those are conversations that we need to have.
Can I add, though, at town meeting, there was a lot of urgency around our table and around the select board table that these people have 75% of the funding done by fall town meeting, or I mean, I think we were part of the reason there's such urgency here is that we said, this has to be done and built and complete like in the next 10 months or something that
That wasn't a requirement. I don't think we signed off on anything.
It was not eventually, but I think in an ideal world we would have lots of time, and this would have been built over the last 20 years and it wouldn't have deteriorated, and we wouldn't be where we are. But we are where we are, and there is urgency because town meeting is expecting a result by next spring town meeting, and so I think there is urgency, and I agree with Mr. Belair that I mean, first of all, obviously I'm in favor of doing everything that we can to support giving them every chance that they can to make this thing work. Okay, I don't know if it'll work. I hope it'll work, but we ought to give them every chance from my point of view. Mr. Belair adds a whole nother layer, which is if it doesn't work, how are we going to credibly stand up and say, okay, we want to demolish this building when town meeting can point at us and say, oh, it didn't work because, right at the very beginning when they were just getting started and they needed to build momentum with their donors and, get some progress, we wouldn't let them apply for something and let CPA decide whether it was worthy or not, given where CPA is in their whole process, in their development of a nascent kind of organization. And so, I feel like there are very legitimate things that have to be worked out later. Care and control, use, all that stuff. And it absolutely has to be worked out before people can start using the place. And as they get further along, the risks are going to get higher and higher. They're going to need to work that out with us. But, we might not come to an agreement on stuff, and then they're stuck having taken donor money and built out part of a building and things. So, I mean, the risk, I think, is more on their side because we're not going to give up care and control until we have a contract that is, ironclad, that meets the needs of the district, from my point of view.
I mean, but I just want to go back to Mr. Roeder's email, which was, he was requesting the support from the school committee in the form of a letter or possibly an MOU with the Historical Society. And to the motion that was proposed to us, I mean, again, I don't know if Mr. Roeder was speaking for all of you, and this was.
I wrote the motion.
You did, okay. I just don't know that I can. I don't know that I could accept the motion as it was presented by Mr. Roeder. I mean, I think there's potentially.
Can I make a separate?
Yeah, no, I think there's potentially a
I'd also
lower
like to
level
say
of
that
motion.
WCCP is not scheduled to deliberate on this until August. They haven't deliberated on this.
And that is, WCCP will be discussing this with us on an ongoing basis. It's scheduled for August 5th.
Correct.
And obviously, one of the things that needs to be in place is that we have support from the controlling organization for the building, which is you, obviously, for our piece there, for them to do their deliberations at the end of August and then make recommendations to fall town meeting. So we're trying to work that stuff through, and they were doing this. I think the other side of this is we feel that there are things that need to be done to the building as quickly as possible to reverse the deterioration of it, specifically the amount of water that's getting into the building. And that, we would like to figure out a way of working with the schools and the school committee to start doing some work there initially to patch it up and be ready for, assuming that we, get this grant and the town meeting approves it, that we could start in the December or January to actually start fixing the building envelope permanently. That's the kind of mindset of vision there.
And the other thing is, this is a longer term, this is over a longer span than just next Springtown meeting, because I think the timelines that you've been talking about are summer of 2027 to have the roof fixed up. I think that was mentioned somewhere in here, or that you might have said that.
That's sort of assuming that, things won't go fast. But, that's, the idea is to, we obviously want to get the building envelope fixed as quickly as possible. First priority is securing the building. The second thing is let's get the water from going in there. Then let's secure the building envelope, because we know we have to do all of those things no matter what the building gets used for. We think we have a good vision of what the building would be used for. We need to validate that vision, working with organizations and make sure it's going to make financial sense in terms of, is there going to be enough revenue? The Historical Society, like with the Sanborn House, we don't have to make money on the investment. We only have to make enough money to continue to maintain the building afterwards and to pay the expenses of having the building used.
So I guess my 2 points, oh, I'm sorry.
No, I just wanted to comment on Mr. Matthews and just say, we are here to meet with you and to work together. I'm not trying to criticize anyone on process, but we worked very closely on the Historic Commission with Mr. Nixon for years, and he sort of would always reach out to us and say, hey, this is what's going on. And then all of a sudden, and I think I had said this to you, like, we got this demo permit, and no one had kind of given us a heads up either. That's just hard. You have new people coming onto committees, but I think we're here to say we want to continue to work with you, be very open, answer any questions or concerns, but I hope we can say that, hey, the Sanborn House has been working really well with the Ambrose community and the town, and we want to continue to do that, just expanding the space. We understand all of the concerns, and I've said before, as a former Ambrose mom and PTO president, I very much care about the Ambrose community, and I think we just want to continue the relationship and having these conversations and answering any questions, and we're all available by cell phone, email, at all times to answer any of them. Or something comes up, just reach out. But this is just really trying to move things forward so that we can continue the work that I think town meeting very clearly said. And I just want to state, I also would have loved to have seen the superintendent up there. That was the feeling at town meeting. And for folks that might not have been on at that time, it was just the price tag. And I think now we've just delayed this later, and who knows what happens in 5 years, like 10 years. Maybe we have this renovated beautifully, and maybe it does turn into some other type of space. But if we demolish it, we'll never know that. And I hope that we can, this is a town asset that does belong to all of us, and I hope that we can try to work with WCCP and CPA funds and try to just see if we can get this up and running. Thank you.
So my 2 points were just going to be, assuming that the work goes on through summer of 2027, we wouldn't meet a spring town meeting deadline to have a discussion on a demo or not. And then the second point, just with respect to what you were both saying, is when you're working with different organizations, talking about what the purpose of this building might be down the road, I think it's very important that you also, and I think you had alluded to this, it's very important to have the school committee as a part of that discussion, and I don't know if it's like a regular report back to the school committee or if it's having a school committee member go to the discussions that you're talking about. I appreciate what you were saying about having a very close relationship with Mr. Nixon, just talking about the building. So.
Do we have a school committee member that's appointed to the Historic Commission?
No.
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 Maybe we should have one.
I mean, that's up to the town.
Keep in mind, the Historic Commission is not part of this process other than
Oh, I'm sorry, the
demolition
Historic
delay.
Society.
Historical
Correct.
Society, we'd love any of you to join and become members and help with all this.
And there was the discussion in the rush up through, or in all the work through Springtown meeting, that when we were talking about Article 46, 45.
Very
about
good,
making
Karen.
a study committee. I
think it's
I'm a policy
26, but
person,
great,
so
yeah.
I remember these things. But we were talking about putting together a study committee and who might be a member of that, so. And I think we had included a school committee person on that. So I'm just saying. I think there needs to be that, maybe that inclusion on something like that.
Would it be within our purview to create a study committee such that we can?
Oh, well, I don't know if it was still in the format of a study committee, but go ahead.
I mean, we can do whatever.
I'm
we want,
just trying to
but
think about the path forward here. I'm sure we all are.
I'm stuck with that, stuck on that one as well, because I think it's also, I mean, to Ms. McCarthy's point, like, unfortunately, I think it's very hard to sort of know what town meeting's will is, right? So I think sometimes town meeting votes for things or votes against things, and, there's not necessarily, I think a clear message, and I would actually argue sort of the contrary, that town meeting sent us a message that they want an attempt to try to preserve the carriage house, but I'm not even convinced. I mean, I was on town meeting when we voted on the prior carriage house plan, and I mean, it wasn't just the price tag. There were multiple concerns that I had. So I think it's sort of hard to know what town meeting members, we can't really speak for town meeting because I think sometimes it does things in ways that
192
aren't.
of them.
Right. It's just, and I think different people vote different ways for different things. It doesn't send a clear message, and that's part of what I struggle with on this one as well. So
What's just the minimum that we need to move, for them to be able to move forward?
well, that's so I'm going back to, let me just sort of state, I am not in favor of the motion as, I guess, presented by Mr. Roeder on your behalf. I'm thinking about the motion that we made around the Morocco property usage, right? And so I'm trying to think of a way.
The walk and roll,
Yeah. So, because the only thing we voted in that case was,
the parts that impact Morocco. But this one impacts our property 100%.
correct. But what I'm saying is, I'm wondering whether there's a.
I have language drafted.
Okay, let's hear it.
Like,
Sorry.
Is it the-
No.
Just one thing, there is a specific thing that the WCCP requires, okay? And if you'd like, I can give it to you. Julie just passed it over to me. Would that be
Please,
helpful
yeah.
before that, yeah? There must be one co-sponsored by a town entity with control over or jurisdiction over that land, or accompanied by a letter from the applicable town entity confirming support for the application. And that's the minimum that we need now to continue moving forward on the WCCP. We would also like to, as quickly as possible, certainly doesn't have to be tonight, to work out something that will let us bring in contractors to do stabilization work on the building.
All right. What I have, I think, is an attempt at synthesizing what I interpreted to be the mood of the committee. So I'll make a motion that the school committee send a letter to the WCCP expressing the committee supports the WCCP's review of the carriage house application, but has expressed, 1, reservations about the lack of specificity in program design, 2, concerns about the feasibility of fundraising for the project, 3, awareness that other projects may be of higher priority than this project, and 4, concerns about the process in developing this proposal without school committee collaboration. And the school committee defers to the WCCP to determine the merits of the application holistically.
Thank you. Is there a second?
I like the beginning and the very end.
I think we have to have a second to be able to discuss it.
Yeah.
So I'll second it so we can discuss it.
Okay, so motion by Mr. Belair, seconded by Ms. Bolanese. For those who write our minutes, that's why I always say these things out loud.
Can you read it again?
And then,
Sorry.
discussion. No, so go ahead.
Make a motion that the school committee send a letter to the WCCP expressing the committee supports the WCCP's review of the carriage house application, but has expressed, 1, reservations about the lack of specificity in program design, 2, concerns about the feasibility of fundraising for the project, 3, awareness that other projects may be of higher priority than this project, 4, concerns about the process in developing this proposal without school committee collaboration. The school committee defers to the WCCP to determine the merits of the application holistically.
I'm actually ready to vote if you guys are. If there's any other discussion? No?
Is there discussion?
Okay, well, I was actually just going to say that, first of all, I think it should be that where, I don't have the exact wording, but the school committee, confirms our support of the application, because I think that's what they need, is support of the application, not of the WCCP's review process of the application. It's a minor tweak there as to, and you may not agree.
I like the original wording.
And-
I
Well,
like
well,
the
we-
original,
but-
I like
but it
the
doesn't-
original wording.
But then we're not even supporting the application. We're just saying that we like the fact that CCP has a process. And maybe that's the intent. But that subverts this entire conversation we just had.
Because it also notes our concerns.
I think what my intention and I guess the background in framing this motion was that we have these reservations. We don't want to stand in the way of the WCCP reviewing, and we ultimately defer to the fact that they are the ones who are charged with making these reviews and revisions. Like it's not our purview to decide what CPA projects get funded and which ones don't. It's the WCCP's purview. So that's the needle that I'm trying to thread there. So
The first thing I said when I mentioned the Tri-Community Greenway improvement is that the Morocco community strongly supports this. And MESPA went out of their way to dig up this application and say, please support this. This is really great for Morocco. That's not what we're getting from Ambrose. But let's give them an opportunity. Let's give Ambrose an opportunity to voice, let's hear from the community.
So I think Ambrose has that opportunity when the WCCP hears the application, right? Because all we're doing is supporting. So let me just say what I think.
Okay.
I think what I'd like to ask to amend the motion to say that we support the application, and then I'd skip ahead to the school committee defers to the WCCP on how they wanted to, the merits of it. I think enumerating our concerns in there will be a much longer discussion, because I have different thoughts in there than those concerns. Those are all sort of negative
Okay,
concerns.
so let's bring it to an extreme, since process is important. So say this is an application for a water park, right? So if we may not support it, but WCCP can still deliberate about it, right? You know what I mean? If we say nothing and we just say, oh, it should just be up to WCCP, does that set a precedent that all of our properties they can deliberate about all of our properties with or without our support?
Well, I think this.
Yeah, I think I'm a little bit concerned about saying that we defer to the WCCP's judgment on this.
This is just on
the review.
This is not on the project. It's just on a grant that is one of the things they need. They still
It's
have
not
to
a
come
grant.
back.
You say it's
These
the
aren't
application, then it
grants.
is the project. So,
What are they, awards?
Then they'll get money, and then they're gonna do something with the money, right?
But we said that one of our things that we're holding them to do is to raise the money. And we already said that we support moving forward, and that you need to raise the money and show that you're a viable entity and that you can actually raise money to do this. And now we're making it hard for them to raise the money, which is the very thing we asked them to do.
And the definition of the project is around, again, it's not the full project, it's about securing the building to stop deterioration and to do design plans.
Why can't you private fundraise to do that?
We're gonna try every avenue available to that. This includes CPA, but it also includes private fundraising. It includes other grants. We're gonna look at every avenue. This is a large project, and we're gonna need every avenue. But CPA is from a timing standpoint, and it gets us started and stop the deterioration, which is really the biggest part of the project we're talking about. And so that's the scope. So we're I know some of us we're projecting forward here, but I really want us to think about this is a request to help us stop the deterioration in that building.
and I guess to that point.
There's no disco balls.
That has been
being
a
ordered.
discussion that has been a main point or a key point of the discussion over the last 6 years at least, but I think even much further back about the deterioration from the roof. And I think even like Pete Lawson has come to us many a time, or different school committees many a time, and has said, there's all this, I've put in a request for working on the roof each year. nothing happened, I think to capital, and nothing's come of it, so, but I think it's because there are all these challenges around the funding that we need for other projects in town with capital. So I guess I'm a little bit, on the larger scope of the project, I'm very torn, and I think that, like you're saying, Dr. Matthews, there needs to be a very tight process here, and Dr. Hackett, I think there needs to be a very tight process here with keeping the school committee informed about where this project is going. The project, like the overall project.
The big project, yeah.
But on a specific point, if this is just looking at the roof and securing the roof, I mean, that's something that's been coming up for ages. So I just suddenly thought of that. So.
No, that's so two things I'll say. So one of them is, I do wonder whether we can build, to Mr. Bellaire's motion, build in conditional support, so using the term conditional support, right? So I don't know if that, again, I'm not an expert on the CPA law and what's required, but that it's conditional support for now, because I don't want to kill this off by not voting in support. But I also, what I would like to see, and I'm just going to be honest, with this magnitude of a project, I would like to see a unanimous vote of this committee, right? And it very much feels like we're not there. And so what I am trying to do, in making these suggestions is to get us to that point, right? Because to what Ms. Bolanese just said, I think we need to be able to, we may not necessarily have confidence right now in the total project, but we can be okay with the stabilization potentially of the roof. Should that be funded by WCCP? There's also time, so WCCP, the review is in August, and then eventually it will come before fall town meeting, right? So none of these things is happening in isolation. They're sort of all building on one another. Eventually, if it does or doesn't make it through CPA, which could happen anytime between now and August, and we could have a different opinion based on something that comes up between now and then. But then, the next stage after that is that it goes to the WCCP to make a decision. Then they have to bring it to town meeting, whatever they prioritize for funding. It may or may not make it. There's sort of multiple more layers
There's many
to this.
gates.
Yeah.
I think the challenge is, and I think we are all operating off of the communications we've received, right? And I get why motions were crafted the way they were, why requests were made the way they were, but I really want to lean on what Ms. Bolanese just said, which is, there's a very potentially narrow scope for this. Looking at the application, I think, again, from a process perspective, I'm not 100%. The application, I'm just trying to actually pull it up again, but the application has way more things on it than the roof, right? So it says, and this could be that I may not even have the most recent version of it, but what I had on my version in the packet for tonight was hiring professional services for the development of architecture, engineering, and construction plans, securing building and stopping further deterioration, restoring building envelope, removal of previous modifications, remediating asbestos, mold, etc., creation of program space on the first floor, necessary HVAC insulation, electrical, plumbing, fire safety, and ADA work done in a manner such that renovation of the second floor and basement for program space could be done as a future project, and work done in line with the Secretary and the Interior's standards for historic properties guidelines. I just don't.
I think that's different than the version.
Is it different than the latest version? Okay.
Well, and that's right after the total project budget of 1.5 to 2.5 million.
Yeah, no,
So
but it's does the current application actually specifically say for the roof?
So the application asks you to talk about a bigger project and then
Sure.
what's your sub-project.
Do you want me to read out for the roof specifically?
It does. I'm just.
Andrew, can you bring it up?
Yeah, that would be easier.
Can you bring it up, please?
And while he brings that up, I feel like it's kind of like if you're skiing and you're just going through the first gate, and so I'd be comfortable saying, we approve or we support the letter for this one step
that was
without
the
making
problem.
any judgments for future steps, because we haven't seen
Right.
the plans for future steps.
Sure.
So if that was the gist of our motion, I would be very supportive of that.
I feel like it's skiing and my legs are killing me.
Yeah.
And I want to get it to the clubhouse pretty soon. So just going to put that out there. They're rentals, so
Well, it never is good.
We're just bringing it up, sorry. We're bringing up the application. We have our après ski of talking about capital after this, so that'll be a fun.
Andrew, I can email it.
Got it from,
I don't think, how did you have it?
this is what is
Yeah,
sitting in
okay,
the
that's-
June
I didn't have a copy, so I asked him for it.
Yeah, so this is the challenge, and this is what I really want to note, right? So what was in the packet was what I just read. Obviously, there's been an update.
Yeah,
And
I
There's
don't-
nothing in the packet this morning.
Correct. No, that's what I'm
There's
saying.
the 9:03 AM from, that I think Mr. Belair had uploaded.
Yeah, just.
Sure. But again, this is part of why, from a process
Again,
standpoint, I have a lot of
moving
concerns.
parts.
Andrew, I just emailed you the link to the one that I was emailing.
Because if we don't have updated applications, it's hard for us to, I mean, I know what was in the packet, and it was what I just read you, which apparently is now already out of date. So it's like, it's just very hard from a process standpoint.
Yeah, the paragraph after the one you just read is probably the operative one. It says work to be covered by grant.
Is that actually in the updated or the
There's,
one that we had before?
I don't
What you
know
have.
exactly what you have, so that's
Up on the
the,
board now. Oh,
okay. Just make sure I got this.
Yeah, it didn't have that in the, what we had did not have any additional, that was it.
So, okay. So just so you understand, when we submitted this, we didn't realize that there was a different form for the final thing than the other one. So we put it, it was an addendum. It appears you have the addendum, but not the original.
The first one. Yeah.
Yep.
so is,
And-
what's this?
So,
Is this
but-
the correct one?
but Am I correct that they've received both? To say, and you said something like we can put it together, but you need to
So-
reference both?
So we have, WCCP has both. There's actually three things, a cover page, the original submission, and an addendum. And today, literally, I put them all together. So I actually have one that has all those parts together. In the original submission, we basically said, work to be covered by the grant. So if our grant request is successful, we would expect to be using the money in late 2006, early 2027. Between now and then, we would expect to be planning, estimating the costs, developing programming and use plan, including costs and fees, working with potential users of the space, fundraising and publicity, performing work to secure the building. About the time the CPA money would be available, we should be ready to work on the most important part of stabilizing the building, which would be replacing the roof. Our initial estimates for that are this.
I have to say, one thing that we haven't mentioned is, don't you think before we have people going in there, that asbestos remediation should be the first step?
Not really. I mean, if you actually take a look at the asbestos, it's only on the heating system.
basement?
And a few pipe corners potentially. Different people have told us it does or does not, and the work done by the, in the original, if you look at the reports from 2005 and from 2020,
So then it shouldn't be hard, right? Shouldn't asbestos remediation just be a part of it then, since it's in,
Again,
Doesn't
that's
seem like
one
it
of
would
the
be a big
things that,
project.
that is one of the things that we'll get to it. But, at a certain point, in terms of stabilizing the building, the asbestos isn't hurting anybody as long as you don't touch it. And so we should get to that at some point in time. But certainly stopping the building from leaking is a prerequisite to that, because that actually can cause an issue with the asbestos. So, I mean, these are all these things we have to, are things that have to get done for the building to be completely done. And I think that part of the planning going through is finding out what order would you do these things in? Okay, how would you think about that?
And I think like maybe the answer from us is that that's what we can give to you, is that we can, instead of potentially forwarding this to the WCCP, what we can do is we can send you guys a letter that outlines what we'd want to see in a collaborative process before the next CPA project cycle, such that we can really set this up for success, not only at our committee, but in the WCCP and at town meeting as well. Because I think I'm getting the sense here that the plans are still in formation and might not be ready for prime time just yet, but that we have time to work together to come up with that plan. So maybe that's the...
For a 2027
For a future,
application?
yes. Because I have reservations about, and I think Ms. Minyarji and Dr. Matthews do as well, about whether we have everything lined up for this to be done in the appropriate order and along the right timeline. And I think we can express support for moving forward with this type of project, but just that this proposal potentially right now is not yet ready for this, but here are the steps that the school committee is going to take to help guide a future application.
So just to maybe get us to, because we are at 9 p.m. And so it may behoove us to go back, and I believe that the way this works is that the WCCP needs to receive something from us by the time this is taken up by them, right?
Yes.
I think that's August 5th. It is now June 29th. In the interest of not dragging this out any further when everybody's 3 hours into a meeting, I think what may benefit us is to come back for the committee to, or maybe it can be Dr. Hackett or Mr. Marion can essentially sort of summarize what we're hoping for before we take a formal vote, right? I also want to go back to the chair of the WCCP, which I have not had the chance to do. So again, this goes back to the process thing. Like, as the chair of the committee, everything, first of all, just like moving forward, everything should come through me, Dr. Hackett, Mr. Marion, just so that we make sure everybody on the committee has the right things in their packet to consider. The second thing is I want to, as chair of the school committee, I want to reach out to the chair of the WCCP and actually ask what exactly it is that they need, because I'm now having thoughts about what we voted on the walk, bike, run, and whether that is actually sufficient to meet the needs of the WCCP, right? Which was not my
Because it
understanding.
was specific to Morocco?
Because it didn't support the project, right?
Right, I
And so
supported
this is, I feel like I need to ask the chair of the WCCP, like, what is it that we need? Because I think, obviously it's a different project with the bikeway than it is for this, but I just want to make sure that we didn't vote something that's not the letter that they need, right? And so if everyone's okay with that on the committee, I would like to come back to this as opposed to actually take the vote tonight, because it feels like, Mr. Biller is trying valiantly to try to actually get something that we can all support, but at the same time, if we provide something and it's not what you all need from the WCCP, that's of no value to any of us, right?
She's here if you want to ask her instead of delaying.
Yeah, I'm not the chair of the WCCP,
She's not.
but
Christina
rather
Marshall.
Yeah, it's Christina Marshall. I mean, rather than you voting this down, I would prefer that the school committee have time to talk to Christina and understand what it is that the WCCP needs.
Yeah, because this is why, I very rarely lean on this, but it's like the chair to chair, like, I just want to be in touch with the chair and see, exactly what they need, because if we need to revisit the Morocco thing as well, then I want to make sure that we do this in the right way.
Okay.
So, is everybody?
Do we have to?
I
do
don't
something
know.
with Morocco?
We're going to leave it as is. We'll put it in the minutes, and then I'll go back to Ms. Marshall and ask her whether what we've put together is sufficient for the requirements for that project as well. But I just don't think we're going to get, it's 9 o'clock, I don't think we're going to get the answer tonight, so.
Dr. Matthews, can you, when you do that, it would be helpful to find, the minimum vote that we need, which I thought I heard was just a letter of support for this one grant, basically. And I guess that's it. I mean, I don't think that the vote, from what I've heard, but I'd be interested to hear from it goes beyond the scope of the WCCP because they're not involved in the project beyond their grant. But all the other stuff beyond that seems like it's beyond the scope of this. It's really, I think what we want to vote on at the next meeting is just the bare minimum to comply with getting this grant.
would be good.
I mean, it goes to whatever is in the, so I need to, so I personally, I need three things. One of them is I need to really sit down with the updated and make sure that I've seen that, because the only thing I've seen was it was $150,000 at a previous stage. So that's the first thing that I personally need. The second thing is I need to get the information from the chair of the WCCP. And the third thing I need is to sort of make sure that hopefully, you know, we can communicate with you to actually say sort of like what we're broadly hoping to see in terms of, you know, just the discussion around care and control of the property. That's kind of where I am personally at, but I'm not speaking for the committee.
Yeah, and so is the care and control their access to the building or our legal rights over the building?
No, it's, so to the point, Bill, you know, the motion that was actually sent in was much more broad and specific than I think what we've been envisioning tonight. And so I want to make sure that, you know, on top of these other process concerns, I want to make sure that the motion also, should the funding be successful downstream, we can always change these things later. But I at least don't think that the motion that was proposed is the motion that we will land on. And so I want to make sure that we actually have motion language for that, not only that works for the letter that we send to the WCCP, but also works in terms of if there's access issues to the property.
Right.
Asbestos abatement, et cetera, et cetera.
And I think that makes sense to, like in the way they've accessed the property already to put the lights on it and the stuff, whatever that level is, should be included.
But this is going to be much more invasive, right? Because at that point, it's going inside the structure.
I get that, but it's not turning over ownership of the building.
It's not, it wasn't even in the proposed motion, but it was, you know, so just, I would put it up if I could, but it's access during business hours on weekends, be provided with necessary keys, investigate conditions in and around the building as part of planning its reuse, make security improvements such as fencing, surveillance, and physical protections, make short-term repairs to stop further deterioration of the building with prior approval, all actions subject to the usual indemnity agreements, query checks, and insurance documentation typical of work on school property.
Much of which has been done, or some of that has been done.
Some has, but not all, yeah.
Just procedurally, do I need to rescind the motion that I will rescind the motion that I made earlier.
All right, so there's no motion to vote on tonight. We all have our sort of next steps. I will take on the items that are on my plate. If you all, who's the best person?
Yeah, well, who from school committee and who from our group? You, okay, so.
As chair.
Tim, I will work with you.
You'll be the lead from the society,
on
okay.
that.
Great.
And I will send you a bunch of material tomorrow morning.
Great.
Or maybe wait till it's 100 degrees and do it then.
We'll have lots of time.
All right, that's great. Thank you all for your time tonight. I appreciate it.
Thank
Appreciate
you.
the conversation. Have a good night, everybody. All right, so
Mike.
mindful of our time, so what we've got left are our summer meeting schedule and workshop, our capital project priorities, and an executive session, and consideration of approval for the Unit D contract. So here's my proposal. So I think we should potentially table the executive session.
We need a vote on Unit D,
Correct,
but yes.
but
If people feel comfortable voting on Unit D, the MOA, two people were involved in negotiation, then you could not go in executive session and just vote that. If people have questions, are not comfortable with that, then we would need to go in executive session to discuss it, come back out and vote, but it has to get voted on tonight.
Yep.
Beyond that, other things that are, can wait. You're gonna have to meet again probably next week.
That's my guess.
Because you've got the assistant superintendent position that you're going to need to be involved in the appointment of, or however the process plays out.
Yeah. So here's my thought. Capital project priorities, when is the date that those need to be in?
I feel like we need to get those in.
2 weeks ago.
2
Yeah.
weeks ago?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So here's my thought.
Can we just rip through capital really
Well,
quickly?
how are we feeling? How are we feeling about the Unit D contract?
I'm happy to vote on that in public session.
Is everybody happy to vote on that without going into executive session?
Yeah, sure.
Yes? No pressure either way. But have you
I
had
had
time?
other reasons. I'm
What?
fine with Unit D.
Okay, I mean, so everybody's had a chance to review it. There's no further questions that need to be asked in executive session. If so, I'm happy to accept a motion around that.
Oh, sorry, one of the Unit D members want to make the motion?
Let me pull up the agenda. I'll make a motion that the school committee accept and ratify the memorandum of understanding for the Unity contract.
Second.
All right, so by a motion by Mr. Belair, seconded by Ms. Bolognese, we will take a roll call vote because this is always fun. Mr. Belair.
Aye.
Mr. Hopcroft.
Aye.
Ms. Bolognese.
Aye.
Ms. Minyarji.
Aye.
And the chair votes aye as well. So that is accepted, and
Perfect. I will
we
pass that along.
direct the superintendent or his designee to pass that along to our partners on the WEA. That's great, and congratulations to all of the parties. It was probably the most brief of all of our negotiations, but certainly not the most rapid in those bargaining sessions. We had some really good conversations and are grateful for the partnership. All right, so moving along to the, let's go back to the capital project priorities, Mr. Aaron, if you want to pull those up.
This is very funny. The first one.
Oh, yes.
I knew it.
So, all right, so Mr. Marin, do you have anything you want to present? We need to hash through this, right? So
Yeah, I can
it's,
quickly run through it.
so we,
Let's just go through all of them. Can we just, run
Yeah,
through them
I'll
all?
go real quick and
Yeah.
then,
we did run through them last time, so I feel like we can do the very Cliff's Notes version.
yep. So Carriage House, some history there. So we brought back your priority from last capital cycle for abatement and demolition of that carriage house. Next is the Ambrose Elementary building HVAC. This is to fund design work for full building replacement of HVAC, including assessing for adding air conditioning in that building. This was a new one for this year, is a project to expand air conditioning at McCall and Vincent Owen, prioritizing those upper floors that we have very high temperatures. We've been having to add portable air conditioners to almost every room on some of those floors.
Yeah.
What has been on our 5-year plan for a while is these heat pumps at Parkhurst that are now have reached or are beyond end of life. They keep failing. We have to, replace parts or keep them going. So they are all overdue. This is a new one this year for funds to fund the design of an upgraded building management system across the town. So that's a system that runs all of our facility systems on town and schools. Lincoln Flat Work has been on the capital plan for a while. What we've done this time around is now phase it out. So a phase 1 and a phase 2, working with the engineering team over at Gale. So we prioritize the first kind of $900,000 worth of work, which is focusing on that entry level. It's those meandering pathways and that monumental staircase and kind of corrections there. And then phase 2 would be the surrounding building and the other kind of perimeter work. Winchester High School exterior concrete, this is a carryover from last year. So around the building, there continues to be failures of the mortar and capstones and railings. You can see some work that DPW has done this past year, embracing some of those areas. So there's significant decay or issues around there. So this would be $30K to study what's really going on with an area that should not be failing. This is a new addition for Lincoln. We had to have some funds for design work to upgrade the field turf and landscaping around Lincoln. As you know, there's sort of a landlocked area. That they have a grass area that can never really be established because the time we grow it, we're already back to school, and it turns into that right-hand picture, which is kind of a dust bowl. And then there's an older playground that was removed a while back in the rear of the building that was for kindergarten. And so what remains is an older poured-in-place rubber surface that is really beyond repair right now. And we'd like to sort of incorporate into this larger project.
Andrew, would that be under the shading structure that we?
No, the shading structure is on the other side of the building. So if this is the rear, the shade would go on the grass side of the building where there used to be a tree in the middle. So that's where they want to go with that shade structure.
Is that Main Street?
I think,
It's not important.
yeah, this is on the McCall side. Is that
Yeah,
Main Street?
yeah.
That's Main Street. Okay.
So really quickly, some of these projects are eligible for WCCP funding, but yes, the deadline passed, but also no town projects were submitted. So I think that there's a,
So that's the town manager's.
right, so I think those are conversations that WCCP has to have with select board and town manager to figure that out, because I think there was, again, WCCP is still trying to figure out their rhythm. But I think there are 3 projects on here that I would like to see considered by WCCP, correct? The Lincoln flat work, the exterior work, and HVAC for McCall. Is McCall considered historic? I think so.
Yes.
I'm not sure. It'll be
Excellent.
interesting
Beautiful.
to see what the determination.
I think so. It is, I believe it is designated and recognized as historic.
It'll be interesting to see what the determination is on the flat work, because it's not strictly the building.
Right, but it is the historic staircase.
But is it, yeah, it's an
I don't know.
interesting question.
Yeah,
don't know
so I
either.
think legal, I know legal had an opinion about it. WCCP had an opinion about the Lincoln flat work, but I don't know if, they also didn't really understand what the project was. That it if it included the staircase or didn't include the staircase, so.
So let me just sort of, one of the things that I've noticed about this is there's a lot of design development going on this year. And so I don't know, Mr. Marin, in terms of, we sort of broke the things into the stuff that's design development versus the stuff that's actually implementing projects. What would your advice to us be in terms of the sort of prioritization for the stuff that's that's really in the design development phase? Which are the ones that are the most urgent to do, if they were to get punted? Because I'm thinking about, this is this year for design development, which realistically means we're looking at FY28 for rolling them out. And we've got, by my count, I think there were 4 projects where we were looking at how to scope it. So system design on the building management system, and then the VO and McCall expanded air conditioning project.
And then Lincoln Field.
And isn't Ambrose also? It's just
Ambrose
the design,
HVAC,
right? So
So it is hard. So I presented them sort of in my priority. That was the slide.
this is your, got it, okay.
Slide order, and then what's up on the summary slide. So, I put design for those HVAC systems, cooling for student classrooms higher than some other areas, but it's very hard to weigh all these as they're all priorities. But, the Lincoln Field is a nicety. It's not a necessity right now. We like to do it, so I voted that last, or ranked that last.
It also, that also is potentially recreation, so it could be under WCCP.
Yep.
It's a fairly small amount of money, so it's something to maybe talk to
Yeah.
the Lincoln PTO about.
So I might say the ones that are numbered 2 and 3 seem like they're health and safety issues, around getting, invite people over to those buildings without AC on Wednesday this week and see how they do.
And in some of those classrooms, they hit like 100 degrees.
Yeah, it's going to be 100 outside, so it'll
Yeah.
probably be like 120 in those
No,
classes.
even on an 80-degree day,
Yeah.
it'll hit 95,
Yeah. Well,
100 in those classrooms, because of the floor-to-ceiling window, it's very
Exactly.
unforgiving.
So I think it's health and safety. I think also you can't really learn when you're that uncomfortable.
Oh, absolutely.
And so 2 and 3 are my top priorities on the list, just because the others, and I don't even know what to do with Carriage House, because I feel like it's a big open question.
I agree with the way you've ranked these projects.
Put the carriage house in abeyance.
I'm sorry, what did you say about Carriage House?
Put the carriage house in abeyance till there's no real action for you to take as part of this plan tonight, right?
No.
Are we hoping to fill in that row of school committee rankings tonight, or That's okay.
Yes,
Yeah,
please.
that's what we have to do.
Please.
I largely agree with this. I would move Lincoln Flatwork Phase 1 down, and I would move BMS to be right after, and I'd move Parkhurst down too.
I'm just gonna do it live.
Okay, amazing. Thank you.
What's going to be in Parkhurst? Are you guys back in there?
Yeah, I was wondering about what's
Majority,
going on.
the majority of us will be back. Jen, Raquel, and Emma, myself, the assistant superintendent for elementary education, if and when hired, will remain at Lincoln. I don't know if we have anybody, I think that's it, right? Small but mighty crew at Lincoln, but the business office, special education, all of the functions will be at Parkhurst.
Yeah, I would, my
Starting
personal
July
vote would be Ambrose 1, McCall VO 2, and then Parkhurst 3, just because it's people. And then the other ones are, I agree, putting the carriage house in abeyance or something until we figure out what we're doing with that makes sense to me, but I don't know how the process works on here. If it needs to stay, that's fine too.
Is this is for the,
28.
so this comes to,
So you could follow the same process where it's,
So
say if you
like,
carried it forward for 28, and then you brought it to Springtown meeting, and then if you had, if the project was not fulfilled,
yeah, because
and then you could have this funded, and then
there's,
summer work.
because normally we would vote on this in the fall, right?
Yep.
Right, so
no, we voted on it in the summer last time.
No, the town meeting.
Oh,
will
town
vote
meeting,
on
yes,
the-
yes, yes.
So I can't imagine the town meeting will vote affirmatively on carriage house demolition in the fall.
Right, so last year we ranked it
Right.
in the summer.
Right, no, I
And
know.
then Capital punted it
Capital
to
punted it.
spring.
I'm thinking maybe we should punt it in this case because,
Well, we'll say it's punted to spring.
well, I mean, the other thing is, I mean, we've discussed in the past, if it gets to the point, I think we're certainly within our purview to ask for a town meeting appropriation from free cash.
From
for
free cash.
demolition.
Yeah, actually, that's an
I
interesting
just don't,
idea.
the cycle, the
Yes,
timing, it just
I like it.
doesn't work.
I like it. We'll bring a free cash article if need be in the
If
spring.
it gets to the
Yep,
point. that-
done.
I agree. I think
agree.
that's just
Lower the
not,
threshold too.
Yep.
because honestly, I think
No, I think it's great.
not for the fall, and I think.
I support.
Yeah, okay, good.
Yep.
Because I see, otherwise, especially the HVAC stuff, to me is absolutely essential.
Yep.
Demolition's not really in the spirit of capital improvement.
No.
Not if you put a K-1 playground there. Okay, thank
So
you.
are we each ranking and then we average? Are we talking about it? What's the
So,
fastest
no-
way to get through?
Yeah, so one last question. So the exterior concrete, so that's an EFPBC, at the high school, that's an EFPBC thing that they've brought up a few times?
They've had opinions on it, but it's not a PBC project. They could vote to co-sponsor it.
Right,
like,
no,
but,
but
yeah.
I'm trying to think.
There's other concrete work, and there's history there of surface applied corrosion inhibitor and work going on, the topside work. That's all separate from this. They've not
Carbonation.
voted on this project at all.
Saline.
Yeah,
So
but
this
the
isn't what the vice
deterioration.
chair of the E EFPBC was discussing with town meeting as something that was coming back in the fall?
No, that's an extension of that other work.
It's, okay.
That's
so
interior, right?
All interior, yeah.
Yeah,
Got
this
it.
is- this
Okay,
is-
so this is not,
This is basically the flat work, right? This is in and
It's the
around
crumbling
the
stairs.
stairs, right? Yeah.
Yeah, leaving
railings
the
and,
angles
yeah.
there,
Yeah.
okay.
But
that-
is there a safety issue there?
They've mitigated any of the main safety issues. They've, braced it or done
Oh,
some
they did that.
repairs, but yeah. But the concerns are like it's not going away and what is the root cause of it. So I think it's really bad mortar that may be used, but.
Oh, bad border.
It's not immediate health and safety.
Okay.
Yep.
And same clearly with Lincoln flat work.
So if you take carriage house off, I'm actually good with the order of these. Because in my view, it's prioritizing our students and then our administrators, the people in the buildings to be sort of health and safety, and then goes to the building management system, and then the long-awaited Lincoln flat work and other flat work-like upgrades.
Are remove and putting it into abeyance different?
I mean, do you want to,
Well, it's not going to be sent to the capital committee, so we're
Right.
removing it from the capital committee's considerations, and that's what this is for.
Right.
But I will certainly,
You can move it to the
let's have the minutes reflect that we want to consider adding it to
I might also
town meeting.
flip 6 and 7.
6 and 7.
I think I'm slightly biased towards the Lincoln Field stuff over the exterior concrete because it's actually.
You mean put 8, 7, and 8?
Well, that's just
in our-
design, the Lincoln is just designed though.
Correct.
Okay.
That's why I'm saying, it's up to the committee, but I personally, yeah, that's how I would do it.
Okay.
I would put Lincoln Flatwork 7, but I don't feel super strongly.
You would
about
put it behind, yeah, I mean, that's,
I don't feel like it's not that bad. I mean, you would know better, but.
I think it's,
it's also very costly and unlikely to be
Yeah,
funded at
there's-
$900,000, so.
Well, it's been scaled back, right?
Yeah, so it's 1.8 million. This is halved. You know.
Right, because
It
we
is like,
took out the
See?
outdoor
to get the outdoor
classroom.
classroom, right. But
Yeah,
that-
so
those
it was
stairs
even
are
higher
also
than
kind
that.
of
Right,
treacherous.
We also
No?
yeah, it is like, if you walk through it.
The stairs are kind of treacherous. Go up,
We have beautiful sidewalks in Winchester. Beautiful roads.
the grand-
It doesn't always need to be.
The grand staircase needs
stairs-
to be dealt with.
Sorry.
The grand staircase that
That's what I'm
in
saying.
front has to be dealt with.
It's the
Yeah.
stairs.
Because
Into the building.
Into
directly.
the
You know that
building.
big stairwell?
That is the immediate, because they have to reset it every so many years.
Yeah, every year essentially.
That's a safety
Yeah.
concern. It's the stairs.
And also
Yeah.
DPW has conveyed to us that clearing it of snow and ice, given the split nature of it, is almost impossible. So that was the piece that was new to me last year, was DPW has expressed that it is almost impossible to keep it cleared and safe. So the idea, I think, originally behind it was to sort of create one path as opposed to the bifurcated path.
I love it.
Yeah, so I'm happy. I mean, as long as you all are okay with this, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 7, 6, I think that's great.
And would we be pushing for the Lincoln Field upgrades to go through the WCCP process? Or is that part of this? I guess that's
I
where-
I think we
absolutely will bring it in.
should.
Yeah, anything that's
I think
eligible for
anything
consideration.
that's,
Yeah.
that's potentially.
I'm going to bring up the flat work too.
I think the flat work could go in.
Yeah.
And, I think also the.
McCall AC.
McCall
I'm sorry, yeah, McCall AC.
Ambrose as well. No,
No,
Ambrose,
Ambrose
sorry,
is
is
not,
new,
sorry.
that's right.
It's only 20 years old.
Yeah, I don't know.
We're like 80 years
I don't
away
know
from
why I
being
thought
in
They
I
might
was
like any
Ambrose
of
was
those
Lincoln in my
Ambrose,
mind for a second
McCarvio,
there.
Parkhurst.
So flat work in the field and McCall.
They might like any of the Ambrose, McCalvio, Parkhurst,
They-
heat pump, HVAC related.
Oh, for climate leaders? For, are specific? For,
I don't think Parkhurst would qualify because it's
Oh,
not
that's right, you
historical.
were saying, yeah, you had the historical.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right, so is there a motion to accept this as our priority list?
So moved.
Mr. Belair, is there a second? Ms. Minyarji, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
So we're unanimous on this one. All right, my suggestion would be, actually, is that we adjourn to executive session for 5 minutes, because I genuinely think we're going to have to just discuss some next steps around
Okay.
purpose.
About purpose A for non-union
2
strategy?
For non-union. So, I would accept a motion to adjourn into executive session for purpose 2, which is to conduct strategy sessions in preparation for negotiations with non-union personnel, as the chair declares that an open meeting may have a detrimental effect on the negotiating position of the committee.
So moved.
Second, so I'll take Ms.
Second.
Minyarji as the motion, Ms.
Second.
Bolanese as the second. All in favor?
Aye.
All right, so we are adjourned at 9:27 PM. Thank you. To executive session, we will not be returning to regular session.
Wait. Don't we have to vote did we vote union?
You did.
You have
We
to
did,
come
okay.
back.
Yeah, we
Yep.
did.
I'm losing my
Oh,
mind.
oh,
You were all in
right,
favor.
you did.
Thank you, WinCam. Have a good
You went
night.
on and on about it.
Oh, yeah.
Right under your,
It went by so fast.
I didn't mean to impose on your space, but.
No.